students. Where I work, it's a whole different universe. I work at the Youth Center, which is not even an academic unit, and we're hiring.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, I'm really busy recruiting right now. Super busy recruiting. I'm like the only person recruiting.
They're new ones.
New one.
Everybody else
Danny,
is like,
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry.
we're hiring. Everything we hire people, everything's on sponsored funds, and they had a great year last year. So they got money to spend, keep doing research, so it's good.
Are we
It's
ready?
what's keeping the university going.
Right here.
Or so students, if 90% follow the rules, still 3,000 of them are.
Good evening. Welcome and thank you everyone in the audience as well as the individuals on our YouTube live for being here tonight. I call this meeting of Montgomery County School Board to order at 6 o'clock, or actually 6:04 on August 4th, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I also would like to remind all of us to speak to a microphone as much as possible. I know we are wearing the masks and it muffles the sound a little bit, so it will help the audience to follow. Next one is our adoption of our agenda. Dr. Meyer?
Yes, I'd like to ask the board if they would consider modifying the agenda this evening to remove the approval of the gifted plan. After looking into this, the Gifted Advisory Committee really isn't in line with what the Code of Virginia asks. The code asks that there's representation from the different geographical areas within a school division, and that was not the case. And also, they asked that various types of people actually participate, not just parents, but school personnel and others. And so We did have teachers on subcommittees, but I think we need teachers on the representation on the GAC as well. The teachers are actually the ones, they came up with the plan, but they need representation there too. I like to see student representation. I think also our new administrator of equity and compliance should be also part of this committee because that's a big piece of what we need to be looking at. And so I think it's just really important that it be aligned to our strategic plan, which we'll be, working on the next couple of months to get that finished up. Also, our instructional directors probably need to be on there, but basically we need balanced representation. What I like to do is to create that balanced representation and find those throughout the county at our 4 different strands, and then bring it back to the school board to for you all to approve the committee, and then have that committee look at the plan once more. I'm not sure if things will change or there'll be different recommendations or not, but I would like to see that representation, and then too, I would like for you all to look at the bylaws of the committee to maybe look at some possible changes, such as the representation piece. And so we can, I would like to even look at, how we do all of our committees across the division, and maybe some way of aligning that representation, just to make sure that all of your constituents and all stakeholders are involved. And so that's my recommendation. Y'all like to move forward with that?
At this time, may I have a motion to accept the proposed amendment and approve the agenda as amended? I'll give discussion time if board desires after motion and second.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussions at this time, or any questions to ask moving forward to?
So what's the impact of not approving the plan? Pushing it back?
Right. And there is no impact. We would just move forward with what we're currently doing. Dr. Wickham, go right. The impact of not doing it now. And when I say delay it, I mean, we're talking no more than a couple months. I want to get that committee together, get it approved by you, and let them have a couple meetings to look at it. And so, go ahead.
Yes, really, at this time, there is no impact. We had hoped to have it in plan prior to the start of the school year. We do submit it to the state, but we are well ahead of the state's timeline. We are kind of working ahead. We had set our timeline to be early, but we will not be late with submitting it to the state.
And it's a 5-year.
It is. It's a multi-year plan. But like I said, we set an advanced timeline trying to get it done, again, with the hopes of being ready to start the school year. But many of the programs, one of the big changes for us is I lead, and we've been working to implement that slowly across the division. So the impact will not be significant. We do still have time to get it into the VDOE.
I don't have a problem with tabling it for now, as long as we bring it forward again very soon. I mean, I understand we got a lot of other stuff going on this evening too, and but I do think there's more to look at. I want to make sure that there's consistency in how we're dealing with the gifted as well as with special ed, how we're dealing with all of our committees, and that there is consistency with how those committees are set up and run. And so I wouldn't have, as long as I know for sure we're not going to be late on submitting something, and that this is something that's going to be brought forward in the next few weeks, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah. The Special Education Advisory Committee comes to the school board for the approval.
Yeah, we do approve special education committee advisory board members.
It's sort of been hit and miss with others. We talked about it today in our leadership meeting. Mr. Husband's CTE advisory board, his is really almost dictated by the federal government, actually. But I wouldn't still mind you all seeing who's on that committee as well. When
I was looking around, I ran into Alexandria City Public Schools Advisory Committee handbook. So it is a nice one that covers all the, what all the advisory committees should do in terms of the members, in terms of the appointing the members, in terms of the appointing the bylaws. I think the consistency really will help us. Then we don't have to worry about moving forward.
And something else to recommend moving forward too, just thinking of the advisory committees we have, the calendar committee, I wouldn't mind that coming to you all the people that are going to be on the calendar committee in the future, and then there can be clear expectations moving forward. Like anytime you approve the committee members, create clear expectations as to what you want them to advise you on to make that decision. I think that would be helpful too.
So I think that's I agree. I think we have enough on our plate tonight, and I'm okay tabling it since we have that time. One thing I want to make sure that we, if there's a problem with how we've been doing, if there's been a problem with inconsistency in our advisory committees and things like that, that's certainly not the fault of the parents and the people who have already, served time on this committee. So I just want to make sure moving forward that we aren't, brushing those people's concerns and what they've worked on aside, because I don't think, they sent us all a recommendation through email, and I've read it, and I talked to a few of the people on the committee to try to understand their concerns. And, two of the things that stood out for me with talking with these people is that they were kind of saying some of the same things that you were saying, Dr. Meyer, that, that there is some inconsistency between what the state's saying, what we've been doing, and that does need to be cleared up. They were asking me, actually, how do we get better representation from other parts of the county? Because I don't think they saw a whole lot of daylight necessarily between them and gifted parents from, from other schools. So, I think that's, my request or my concern is just to make sure that we go there and make sure that they're still involved and that the work that they've done isn't necessarily, pushed to the side or anything like that. And then the other thing, I slipped my mind right now. So
And I agree 100% that, I think a good starting point would be their work,
mhm.
And their thoughts and recommendations for everyone to look at. And, I would like to include, at this point, and of course, it's up to the board at the end of the day, we don't like to make committees so large that they can't be productive. But I think the committee was just comprised of, it was 4 parents from the Blacksburg Strand. And we're looking at, for an equal representation in terms of parents, 2. And so we would definitely want to choose 2 of the ones who have been actively involved in, from that strand, and know what's has evolved over some time. And so, but we're looking at 2 parents from Christiansburg, Blacksburg, 1 from Eastmont, 1 from Auburn. Looking at students, we're thinking a couple of students not from the same school that would be in secondary schools, hopefully had the experience of elementary, gifted with us, and then some others, as well. And the new equity and compliance person, I think, is really needed just to make sure we're meeting the needs that are going to be in the strategic plan. Because part of the strategic plan that's coming up is the representation of minority students in gifted, and the lack of, and so, and how we can move that needle some too. So.
And I appreciate you saying that. That's one of the things that we discussed is how important it is that we do want to value their work. Their work has been outstanding. And at the same time, we've not followed our bylaws for how our committee is comprised across the division. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, when we talk about these committees, this is a chance for, and I don't know why the state has certain, committees, I guess, explicitly spelled out in their code and whatnot. I'm sure there's some history behind that, but to me, it comes back to the function of our board, right? That really the public is our boss. And when we have a committee like that, to some degree, I do want to hear, sometimes I do want to short circuit the process and hear directly from the parent, how are we doing, and sometimes when you get in a committee with staff and things like that, things can get shifted maybe the way that parents or the public don't necessarily always want to see. I'm not saying that always happens. And the other thing I'd like to point out too is that all along, I think the parents that have sent us the recommendations have said all along, you don't have to follow our recommendation. I think they realize you're not going to follow all of our recommendations. You don't have to follow all of our recommendations. I think their concern is they want to be able to basically be able to advise the school board directly as it's written and as the intent of the code is written. And I just want to make sure that we don't lose that.
Yep, I agree. Okay, thank you.
I agree.
I'm sorry.
With Mark, 'cause that was going to be my follow-up. In years past, I have asked about the makeup of the committee, and it was, well, we can't get people, blah, 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 right? Um, so I'm feeling a little uncomfortable about not or pushing back, and I know that's probably not the right word, on these folks who worked very hard. I appreciated the um, recommendations that they sent us. I think they are very much in line with what we're trying to do. So I'm just feeling a little pain for them right now because we just should have been doing a better job of monitoring what we were doing. And I just,
Yes, I agree.
If I understand correctly, though, their recommendation in already in inside the plan. If I went, if I look at what you send us with the red marks that I think you and maybe Ms. Knapp provided, and I try to compare what they were asking and what is already inside the plan. So we did consider their recommendations. I don't want them to feel like we are doing this because we really don't want to
No.
listen their recommendations. So
I
I just want to make
yeah.
sure that's not the case.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate their work. I think they did great work. And they made really solid recommendations. Some were taken and some were not for certain reasons. In the end, I think, we need to make sure we're in line with code and that we have some folks with different insight from different communities around the county to take a look at it, just to be sure. And, I would envision that most likely they will come back and it will probably look a lot like it does tonight, in terms of how we would approve it. But I appreciate those parents who have worked hard on it. And I think they did a good job.
And I think to piggyback on both what Ms. Franklin and what Ms. Karan were saying, ultimately it is our decision as the board. So we have that initial recommendation and we can take anything that, and Dr. Meyer doesn't think that's going to change very significantly anyway, but if it does, that's still within our purview, I think, to consider those and ask those questions and make the decisions that we would like to make on that. So, I do think that the gifted program is something that since I've been on the board has, I think it's come up several times, and I think one of the consistent things that seems to come up as it does for many other things is resources. So I think that's one of the things that we as a board might want to also look at within the recommendations and see if something like that would help with some of those areas. But anyway, I'm okay within the guidelines of not wanting to push aside what has been done. I'm okay due to everything else that's going on tonight to push that off, but it is important.
Okay. Snap, you hear that?
If nothing else out there, are we all good? So saying all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm going to say no, because I'm just not, something just doesn't feel right. So I'm just going to say no.
All right. So we have an agenda, and moving forward, Dr. Meyer, your announcements.
Yes. Let's see here. A couple of things. Just want to celebrate the approval of the rezoning request to the town of Christiansburg for moving our bus garage. Appreciate all of you who had input and helping the town council make that decision. And that's going to be a tremendous upgrade for our mechanics and our folks in transportation. Just wanted to give you an update too on our virtual school program through Eastmont and Eastmont High and Shawsville Middle. We've gone up significantly the last week. Folks who are choosing a full virtual experience for the entire year, regardless of the scenario. We have 133 students who are enrolled in that program. And so that's, and what's great about it too, we still have capacity at the school because of, low class sizes and that type of thing. So we're doing well with that. And lastly, just want to let everyone know first how much I appreciate the school board. I've said, more than once that I don't envy the position you're in right now. There is a lot of unknowns that are out there, and the decisions we're making you're having to make are very difficult. But I appreciate your work, and I know, it's very scary and confusing for our families and our staff. And, we committed to remain flexible. I think we got a good plan in place, and we'll always look to do what's best for as many folks as possible. So just want to say publicly, I appreciate your work.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Next item will be our public address. At this time and at each our regularly scheduled meeting, the school board sets aside up to 30 minutes for residents, students, and employees to address the board about issues pertaining public education in Montgomery County. We have virtual public address responses this evening, and those responses are provided in our agenda, and they are part of the record of this meeting. For those who elected to attend in person, our staff has assisted with sign-ups on the Chromebook, and I have to go with that sign-up sheet. I have to see it. Sorry about that. I can't
While
see.
you look for that, Ms. Karan, if we could ask speakers who are coming for public address, we have disinfectant wipes on the table. You can use those to wipe down the microphone. There's a trash can right under where the wipes are. You'll see them when you come up to the podium. So if you could use those to help keep everybody safe and well, we would appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Trey. And each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to speak. The screen throughout the room and the laptop will indicate that speaker has 30 seconds remaining and 3 minutes passed. As a reminder, the board does not respond to speakers during the public address. Now I will be reading first two names on the sign-up sheet. One is Fran Linkus. The second one is Danielle Jennings. Moving on, Captain Michael Fisher. Good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to address the unintended consequences.
Could you say your name and address, please?
Captain Mike Fisher, 1851 Augusta National, Blacksburg.
Thank you.
I'd like to address the unintended consequences that are going to be felt in the combined effects of the change of schedule that we're facing this year with our school children. As you all know, we're facing a significant reduction in hours in our lecture time for our students. If this experiment requires it, the year can be extended to make sure most of the students meet the required curriculum. However, for our gifted students who are in the advanced placement classes, that can't be done because their calendar is tied to an external calendar not controlled by MCPS. The current schedule has gone from 135 hours of nominal lecture to 62 hours for our advanced placement students. In a college course, those same classes would be afforded 108 hours of lecture time. I've spoken to 4 advanced placement teachers, and they have all said they cannot complete the lectures in time to get their curriculum done. Our children are competing against their national peers for college, and they need to be able to pass these classes and do well. With this increased burden, the students are going to face an increased mental strain and also an economic strain for economically disadvantaged students if they cannot complete this curriculum and get credit for these college courses, further increasing their student loan debt in college. What I'm asking the school board consider, I know it can't be done today, is look at a menu of options, perhaps consider starting high school on time if that can be accomplished. If that can't be done, allow the AP or DE students to start on time remotely, or come up with some other creative strategy to allow these students to be able to get on their path. Some have said the colleges will understand, and they will, but if you haven't completed the curriculum, you won't get credit for the class. Some have said we should petition the college board to change the dates of the exam. Since they take over 100,000 students on each exam, it's unlikely that the 200 or so students in Blacksburg will be able to affect the date of the schedule. Some have said that K through 12 must start and work their schools on the same schedule, but we know from experience that the advanced placement people don't follow the same schedule. In fact, their semesters end about 2 to 3 weeks before everybody else. Some have also said that it's just too hard to change anything now, given the time we've had. And I would submit to you, if it's hard, that means it's still possible, and it's something we can look at. Others have said we can give the students reading to help them make up the time. But I think it's unreasonable to ask the students to do reading in a few weeks that will make up for over 50 hours of lost lecture time. When I retired from the Navy, I came here and I was promised by the principal of the school that they would do everything they could to help the students achieve their path. And I'm asking you to help us do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next individual is Mark Williams. Following Mark Williams is Riley Fisher. Yes.
My name is Riley Fisher. I think you might be able to guess who my father is. Michael Fisher. My name, Riley Fisher. I live at 1851 Augusta National Drive.
Thank you.
I'd like to start today by saying that I cannot speak on behalf of all students, parents, and teachers of Montgomery County Schools. I'm just here to talk for myself and to talk for the other students, parents, and teachers who I know have these same concerns, as mentioned by my father before me. And I'm sure many of you already know that the reopening plan right now faces a significant decrease in instructional time. Going from about 130 hours per class to about 60 hours per class. To me, that reduction 50 hours is, needless to say, alarming. That's even including the virtual time that's allotted with the new reopening schedule, at least for secondary schools. Students are given 2 hours of in-class instruction a day following 2 hours of virtual. And that leads to 4 hours a day, which is still a decrease from the 6 hours that we're facing. As mentioned by my father, again, a lot of us students who are in these advanced placements and dual enrollment classes cannot physically complete the instruction that we need to in these classes, as well as the teachers not being able to do what they are expected to do of them. Teachers are evaluated on the students' scores on these final exams, on the AP scores and their final exams that they're given for advanced placement dual enrollment classes. And if these teachers are not given the appropriate amount of time to teach these students, to allow them the opportunity to get these good scores in their exams, I don't know how you can expect teachers to have the same reputation that they had before. These are difficult times. Nobody needs to tell you that. Nobody needs more of saying that these are unprecedented times. But what we do need are creative solutions in what we're facing. And what I'm asking of you today is that to recognize the problems that we're facing with the reopening plan and how to address those problems and what we can do to help these students in these situations. This is not the time to throw up our hands and say, what's done is done, and everybody will have to work with what they're given. Now is the time to allow students, teachers, and parents, as well as you, to come up with these creative solutions in order to give everybody the proper scaffolding to get the most effective education possible. Thank you.
Thank you. The next individual is Bradley Bowen.
Hello, my name is Bradley Bowen. I'm at 2306 Terabella Street in Blacksburg.
Thank you.
Dr. Meyer and the board, I think we'd all agree these are unusual times and we're having to make decisions we've not had to make before. And the future of our children and community will be significantly impacted by these decisions. That's why it's more important than ever to use effective decision-making processes that use research-proven solutions to provide our students the best learning environment possible. I'm a former practicing engineer and high school teacher, and I'm currently an educational researcher and professor in education. And as a parent of 2 young children, I'm concerned about how the information is being used to decide how the learning environment will be structured for the elementary students. Health and safety is by far the highest priority, and the plan clearly takes that into account. But what quality of learning are we sending our kids back to? The significant decrease in class time, plus the safety conditions being implemented in the building, will create a much different environment than pre-COVID conditions. So please don't think that just getting kids back in the building will have the effect you're looking for. And down the line, if it doesn't turn out the way you're hoping, please don't blame the teachers or principals. They're being put into a completely unfair situation in which they will be expected to perform miracles. My particular concern is the learning experience for the elementary remote learners. The plan is for in-person and at-home students to receive instruction simultaneously. Research proves there's a much different pedagogy for engaging students virtually versus in-class students. Michael Barber, one of the leading researchers on remote instruction, says, teachers in face-to-face classrooms work in real time, close physical proximity to their students, and capitalize on those conditions as they create activities and assessments for students. Conversely, teaching online requires a paradigm shift of time and space, as well as a change to instructional activities, assessments, and student engagement, unquote. The moment a teacher has to combine in-class instruction with virtual instruction, the virtual students will cease to be engaged. And although professional development is offered to teachers in the use of different technologies, technology tools do not replace effective pedagogy. And as many parents are now choosing the remote option, there does not seem to be near enough thought about the quality of learning these students will receive. This is very disappointing, given that some of the leading experts on education and designing virtual learning environments are right here at Virginia Tech, yet these resources seem to have been severely underutilized. As an educational researcher, I understand the critical importance of receiving a quality education as an early learner. This foundation provides the building blocks for each student's future trajectory. However, given this plan, I feel the decision is no longer about whether to choose in-class versus remote instruction, but whether or not to even keep my kids in Montgomery County Public Schools at all. I love my kids too much for that. And this is a very unfortunate situation in which many parents have been placed. During this challenging time, we missed a huge opportunity to be a leader in how we structure our educational environment. I know there's no perfect solution, and I'm not questioning your dedication to the cause. I just want to encourage the board to continue to seek out research-proven information so the quality of education is at its highest level as we try to balance educational quality with the safety of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our speakers that sign up, and public address is now closed. Next item is our consent agenda. Any questions regarding consent items, board members? Otherwise, it is going to be approved as a package, and you see Montgomery County Education Foundation grant cycle. Do you want to say
Would you like for me to
anything
go
about
ahead and say something? Sure. So this year, the Educational Foundation is doing something different to better meet the needs of our teachers who are meeting the needs of our students. So what we're doing is a rolling grant cycle. It started July the 1st. And what will happen is grants that are $500 or less will be moved along very quickly so that the teacher can get those resources they need as quick as possible. Tonight is the first grant in that we have received, and we're looking forward to more grants. And the entire process itself is much easier as well. You can go on the Montgomery County Educational Foundation website and apply for your grant. There's an online form, and we look forward to having more to help our students through these challenging times.
Thank you, Ms. Graham. The next item, any questions? By the way, I'm sorry without passing. If not, the next item is payment of our bills. I have a motion to approve the payment of the bills.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and second. Any questions regarding the bills? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We pay our bills. The next item is our business part of the meeting, and that starts with our board member reports. Any board member would like to take the lead, sharing their reports?
I can. I'll go ahead and start. Make this a little easier. I wanted to first apologize because I gave some confusing information at the last meeting. I thought that the USDA exemption for being able to deliver food outside of school via the school buses ended in July. It actually ends at the end of August. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're going to be extending those. So I spoke to Mr. Krantz this evening, and we're going to be able to give the students enough food that last week of August to carry them over to the beginning of the start of school. And we'll be looking at options for those students who are going to do remote learning only until they're comfortable with returning their students to school, because they would have to actually come to a school to pick up the food because of the way the USDA structures the school lunches and breakfasts. I would also like to thank the MCPS administration for all the hours of work they put in on the reopening plan. We know how long it took us to work through it 2 weeks ago or a week ago, whatever it was. And so I want to definitely thank them for all their work. I know that was a lot. I would also like to thank the town of Christiansburg for passing the rezoning of the Operations Center, which will allow us to renovate for a safe and functional bus garage. I'm very excited for our mechanics to actually not have to go under a bus. They'll actually be able to have it on a lift. So that's very exciting. The last thing I wanted to mention was that this would have been the 6th year of the Jill's Buddy Camp. The Jill's Buddy Camp is a partnered effort between Christiansburg Recreation Center and Montgomery County Public Schools to give special needs students a 2-week, half-a-day camp. They get to do activities such as going to the Aquatic Center, Mill Mountain Zoo, the Christiansburg Fire Department, playing putt-putt, etc. Unfortunately, they weren't able to hold their camp this year, as we all know why. So the Rec Center and MCPS teamed up to provide these children a goodie bag with fun activities. Those were delivered to the campers on Friday, and I know that certainly made them feel very special to find that at their house or their mailbox that day. So I just want to thank our special ed department and Christiansburg Rec for recognizing the importance of those special needs children. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Graham. Any other board members would like to continue?
And so I guess it is a report then. I would also like to thank the town of Christiansburg and the planning commission for taking the time to tour the building, to listen to board members talk about the importance of moving that garage and for the safety of our mechanics and other folks who have to work in that building. And I just can't say enough how much I appreciate the work and the time and the effort that they put into making that good decision.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Franklin. Any other board members? Ms. Parton?
Thank you, Chair Karan. I just want to personally thank the town council for their passing the bus garage. It's a huge deal to us, and I know there was some back and forth going on a lot, but I'm glad that the majority can see the future of this and this beautiful building that's always been a school, and it's somewhat of I tend to think of it as some type of historical setting here in the town. I know a lot of people here either went to high school or middle school there, and it's really going to be beautiful when we get done. So I can promise you it is going to be a very nice thing for our employees and the bus drivers and the bus mechanics, as well as being able to still employ students, hopefully, to keep that going where we can get them some on-the-job training and maybe even hopefully keep them here in our county when they go to look for a job. I also wanted to thank the town again. I don't think I publicly thanked them for this, but letting us use the stage for graduation. That seems like forever ago now. But if we hadn't had that stage, I'm not real sure we would have come up with something, I guess. But that was huge, and we really do appreciate them joining with us and partnering with us to have that done. So much appreciated to everything that they've done to help out our school system and join us in providing the best we can do for our community and for our students. So thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Parton. Any other board members?
Kudos to the town, of course. Same thing. We'll say it all again.
And I'll also add my thanks to the town. I think it's significant that I think passed with such a large margin. I think hopefully that, reflects the school system and the towns and the county. We're all in a big partnership together. So it always is good to see that happening. And I certainly hope that our operations center, helps with the revitalization of Christiansburg downtown as well. I also wanted to bring up a couple other things. I did attend a governor's school board meeting on the 23rd of June. Gave some good information on how they did some of the instructions at the end of the spring. I think I emailed some of that information to our staff in case it was helpful to us as well. And of course, they're dealing with the same things that we're dealing, except they don't have much control over it. So they're just sitting, waiting and watching and seeing what everybody else does. But they did throw out a few options that they're considering for the fall as well. So it would be interesting, I think, to have another talk with Rebecca soon and find out what they're thinking now. And then the other thing, I'm not sure if this has come up yet, but we had a huge a landmark Supreme Court decision not too long ago, and I just wanted to bring up, dealing with LGBTQ rights. And I know for a while, we have been hesitant to pass policy on that. And I think with that Supreme Court decision, I wonder if it would be appropriate to seek guidance from our council as to, what they're recommending right now, and if and when we can, move forward on some of the updating some of our anti-discrimination language. Unless that's happened and I've missed it.
I think on that, we're waiting for DOE recommendation. I think end of this year, if I'm not mistaken, they have to provide Virginia Department of Health providing a guideline document for us.
If I'm not mistaken, we're passing it tonight. The legislation actually was passed at the General Assembly this year, and we can look it up, the actual wording.
Okay.
And what it said was it gave us the choice to either it has to be implemented by next year.
Yes.
But it can be implemented anytime before next year too. I'd say we were probably one of the first school boards in Virginia to actually move forward with that legislation now, as opposed to holding off and waiting to next summer.
All right, great. That was a long list. I'm sorry. if I
Yes,
missed that.
it is a long list.
Yeah, I think the
it was 100
guidance-
I think there are 130 laws that affect
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, the model policies are going to be provided by the Department of Ed end of December 31st of this year. And then, the local divisions can move forward with theirs.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
When we get to that part of the approval
we
part,
can look at it.
I'll have Ms. Whitaker point that specific one out to
Okay,
you.
great.
Okay?
Thank you.
So yeah, that's
Yeah, that's a
Okay,
big
great.
one.
Thanks.
absolutely.
Ms. Katz, do you have anything to add or?
Well,
share?
sort of. I've been spending my time talking to a lot of different people over the last few weeks. And what I'd like to do right now is actually share some of the comments that have been provided to me by teachers throughout our school system. Because I think that we need to really be aware of these concerns of our teachers. And I know that, later we can talk about this in unfinished business, but I'm going to use my time to share their words. I'm in a high-risk group and I love my job. I desperately want to be back in the classroom, but at the same time, I don't want to jeopardize my health nor the health of my family. There are so many unknowns with COVID-19 that it seems too great a risk to return to in-person classes. The isolation students feel and the difficulties they face with remote learning are serious and do need to be considered. At the same time, the very real possibility of their teachers, peers, or their school staff members dying and the impact that would have on students must be considered too. I'm still very troubled. This is another. I'm still very troubled by the August 1st MCPS post and what is required for a contact. More than 15 minutes unmasked within 6 feet of a COVID positive person. The way it reads is that just one or two of these would not be considered a contact, but all would. The last statement, by following our masking and social distancing requirements, a student or staff member would not be considered a COVID contact based on school attendance. I want clarification, please. Does this mean that if a student in my classroom has COVID and suddenly switches to remote learning, that the health department or school does not have to tell me that I've had a positive case in my classroom? On to another. I'm a parent and teacher in Montgomery County. My own children are afraid to return to school in person. They're scared peers will not respect their space. They're scared cleaning will be inadequate. They don't want to be in a room with other students or eating with a mask off. As their parent, I share these concerns. As a teacher, I feel overwhelmed at the responsibility that's looming ahead of me. I know how to keep students safe in my classroom and consider that to be one of my primary duties as a teacher. However, I'm not a trained medical professional. I don't feel adequate sanitizing surfaces, ensuring children wear masks, encouraging constant hand washing, and sanitizing in addition to making our hour of time worthwhile. I also don't feel comfortable having students in my room masks off eating lunch daily. I'm afraid I won't wash my hands enough, clean just right, or keep my distance at all times. I'm terrified that I will get a student or my family sick, or that I'll become sick. How will a substitute possibly fill the role that I am not even sure I can currently fill? Another, we were told that there would be no transparency in COVID contact reporting. We would only be notified of a possible contact with Dr. Bissell, considered us having been a contact under the strictest guidelines. How can she determine what kind of contact we've had with any particular student from her office? And then the last thing I want to read is actually, because I thought this was the most meaningful and it just came through today. And it's a pretty long email, but it's from Matt Venturous, who couldn't be here this evening. And he made some comments that I thought were pretty substantial and pretty serious. I think we all can appreciate the magnitude of the last school board meeting running 12 and a half hours. That clearly demonstrated the seriousness of how this global pandemic has affected the community of Montgomery County. Our society continues to ask more and more of educators. Since mass shootings have continued to plague our nation, it's been assumed that educators will take a bullet for their students. Like other teachers, I do anything I could to protect my students. When we walk into the classroom this September, we are being asked to bring those invisible COVID bullets home to our children and families. Studies prove virtual instruction does not show the same benefits as in-person learning, and some students will fall behind. Studies also show this virus has killed people of all ages. Like many times in the past, trust in the educators. We will strive to catch up the children that fall behind. We always have and always will. The MCPS had a positive meeting yesterday with Dr.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
I think we all received that email, so I think we'll continue with the board reports.
Okay. I don't think the people who are watching received it. Do you?
But they could be private, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think that it's right we read other people's emails.
But what if he said it's okay?
What if he didn't?
He sent it out as a public email.
Yeah. That's the problem.
Okay, are we going to read all of them that also approve of what we're doing?
No, I think that it's a part of it is just the board reports, what we did as a board member. I think we have to keep it that way because.
Well, this is what I've done for the last 2 months. I have done.
I understand, Ms. Cass. We've
I'm
been
not
doing
done
the same thing too. So
Why
we
do I
can't
get
read
cut-
all the emails.
Why do I get cut off? I don't understand.
Because you're the only one who read the emails. I'm not cutting off your report per se. I'm just
Well,
cutting
the
off
others
reading the emails.
they were not email. Those were messages sent to me privately. And I asked for permission to read them. And they said, absolutely.
I think she should finish.
No, I will respect what you're saying and I will stop reading them because I think I made my point. My point was that the most important thing I've done in the last 2 months is deal with this. And there is nothing else that anybody here has done that's more important than worry about the lives of our students and our teachers.
Agreed.
I mean, I appreciate that and I agree. I'm not against, sharing the teachers and parents and students' emotions, what we've been going through, but we can't all read all the emails we received. That's what
It was
my
just,
point
that was the last thing I was going to read. I wasn't
sorry?
planning on reading all night long.
She said that was her last one that she was going to read.
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. Yeah. If you like to finish up,
No,
Ms. Cass.
I made my point.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So wrapping up the board reports on my side, I've been obviously reading emails and actually responding emails as well. And I took time and attended a bunch of webinars related to how to open schools and what the school law says and what VHSL guidelines are on that. And also, I would like to thank Town of Christiansburg Planning Commission, first of all, obviously passing their resolution to the Town of Christiansburg Council and coming and visiting actually what we are doing at the Professional Development Center. And I think definitely they left with a great impression. And of course, I appreciate Town Council passing the resolution. It's going to be great to have our bus garage in Old Christiansburg Middle School property. Other than that, I think I also been attending with the administration student meetings that developed after student protest, and we've been having great conversation and hearing their voices regarding equity and our equity plans in the division, and it's been going so well, and it's really enlightening to hear your perspective going forward, how we can help in our equity initiatives. So that has been great. Next agenda item are encumbrances for open purchase orders.
And I'll make one more mention of those meetings at 1 o'clock on Thursdays. They've been absolutely wonderful meetings, and we welcome any students in Montgomery County to attend Thursdays at 1 o'clock. We're having students, and we're meeting with a group of students every week to talk about equity and their experiences in our schools, and we welcome them to come.
Yeah.
And so, absolutely.
And I've spoken with a couple of the students, and they are excited about being involved and having their voices heard.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've expressed that to us as
Yeah.
well. You know, I think we've gone about 4 weeks now and probably had about 6 hours worth of discussion with them,
Yep.
and still don't think we're close to finishing.
No,
So,
we are
gonna keep
going
doing.
line by line, I think.
Yeah, we even allow one of the the students will be a part. We're getting ready to interview for our leads at the middle and high schools for equity, and actually we're asking some of those students to be a part of the interview process, and so we're excited about that. So, okay, next on the agenda, encumbrances for open purchase orders. Mr. Krantz, could you come up? You got about 3 items here. We're asking you to authorize the letter to the county administrator requesting that open POs encumbered during the 2019-2020 fiscal year be reappropriated to the 2020-2021 fiscal year. There are items that were purchased before the end of this fiscal year. They were not received, so the funds were not expended. We're asking you to authorize this letter tonight. And Mr. Krantz, anything else you want to say?
No, sir, you summarized that well.
All right.
May I have a motion to authorize the superintendent to send a letter to the county administrator requesting that open POs encumbered during the 2019-2020 fiscal year to be reappropriated to the 2020-2021 fiscal year?
So moved.
Second.
I have mentioned and second. Now questions to Mr. Krantz. Any questions? Then all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We approve the purchase orders.
Okay, next we're asking you to approve a supplemental appropriation request to the Board of Supervisors, including unanticipated grant revenue.
May I have a motion to approve the supplemental appropriation request as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second by Ms. Bond. Any questions to Mr. Grant?
And this is where we're purchasing we're going to recommend to purchase 2 buses.
Correct. So we
Yes.
have inside the supplemental carryover appropriation, we've allocated based off historically where we've done within those funds. You'll notice number 7, additional buses and related equipment. So that would be 2 buses. We bought 2 earlier in FY20. So this would continue. And then you'll notice the capital repairs and maintenance. The purpose of that is to go restrictive, use those funds within the garage and all the rest of the construction projects that we have.
And also possibly looking to use that because we want to start moving now
On the design.
choosing an architect for the Christiansburg High School project. So we're going to start moving on that immediately with these funds as well.
So whenever we have large surpluses at the end of the year, folks are like, so do we need all that money? So can you explain how we end up with these funds?
So two areas. One, our revenues came in higher than projection. So we were $811,000 higher on actual revenues. And the actual appropriation process for us is we can receive the revenues, but until we go through the process above superintendent approval, school board approval, and then the board of supervisors is the body that gives us the authorization to actually spend the funds, and the timing of that. So we had $811,000 of revenue. We did, as you recall, when the COVID situation broke, froze intentionally because of the concerns that were being indicated from Richmond and from the state on what their revenues would be. So we went very conservative. We continued to buy things that were definitely needed for the classroom, but to also hold off on things that maybe didn't have to be bought this particular school year. With that, we kept our expenses $2.6 million below what we had budgeted. So the sum of the revenue plus the expenditures that were reductions, we came in at $3.4 million. Traditionally, as a district, we'll have year-end carryover. Usually that's spent in that last quarter of the fiscal year, where this is something we monitor from the very first of the new year all the way up to the end of that fiscal year. And so we typically would spend it, and as you know, typically have done it on buses. We've also done it within the music programs. And we've done it with like furniture, fixtures, and things like that are in the schools. It's always been spent back into the classroom. That's been the primary purpose of it. This year, because of that uncertainty, and we still are uncertain because the General Assembly has a special session on August 18th, and hopefully we start to get some clarity as to what the actual FY21 budget will be. So I think it was a very good plan from a financial perspective that we did. And I think because of that, it does give us a little cushion that as we see what happens in FY21, it gives the superintendent and it gives you as a school board some tools to maybe address what some of those challenges could possibly be, and hopefully there won't be any.
And let me say too, if you look at the actual carryover items, many of them, it's money that is, it's not money we can just spend where we want to spend it, such as Medicaid, reimbursements that are sent to us sometimes last minute that get on here. We end up with over $2 million that is actually money we could do something with. And so just to tell you, I mean, at a $120 million budget, ending up with really about $2 million carryover, that is under 2% of our entire budget. And so so what happens is about March, I'll start asking Tommy and Katie, what are estimates? And we start looking at our estimates. Well, at one point, we were down as low as $500,000, and I was a little worried. I'm not going to lie about it. We only have $500,000 left in this March, But what ends up happening are things come back in. How do you explain it to me, Tommy? That they true out.
Things true up. Yes, sir.
True up where we had actually budgeted more money for something, and it didn't cost as much, and that type of thing. And so. And adds back up to that. But
yes,
yeah, I was a little worried
That's
an
understatement.
March.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Thank you. I just think it's important because there are a lot of folks who see anything over $1 million or even $1 million and carry over is you ask for too much money to start off with. That's not the case.
No.
No. I can assure you now being here 2 years, that's definitely not the case.
Yeah, it's a great point. And so, okay. All right.
Ready for a vote?
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We approve the supplemental appropriation.
Okay. Next is with the approved rezoning request with the town of Christiansburg, we're able to begin transitioning the gym at the operations center to our new bus garage. The bus garage team is the last team to be at Cambria Street. Now that they are moving to the operations center within the next few months, we can move forward with selling the Cambria Street property. We're looking for approval to market the property for sale. We would use closed session to inform you of any potential buyers and to inform you of negotiation regarding this property. And so, the way we've always talked about this too is we believe that the money that we will make from that property will actually renovate the bus garage. And we don't have it in hand until we sell it. That's why we use some of this carryover to get moving, if that makes sense. But it should, we should generate enough revenue to do pretty much the entire project at the operations center. So now, and we are being allowed to sell it, and we can sell it as a school division. We do not have to surplus it to the county to do that. We're able to control that process ourselves. So.
May I have a motion to approve for the administration to proceed with the marketing of the Cambria Street property for sale?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further questions, Mr. Krantz?
What's the situation with the zoning, and was there, and I was out of town and missed the meeting with the town of Christiansburg, but I want to be cognizant of what their comprehensive plan looks like and zoning, and is there discussion between us and the town as far as what they would like to see done with that property, and do we know what the underlying zoning is?
Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, the property at the op center was zoned R2. That is also a zone that at Cambria, the Cambria property is actually B3 and R2. What the town of Christiansburg requested is that we go from an R2 designation to a B3. They thought that was more appropriate for the use that we intended, and they also felt like that fit better within their master plan.
Okay.
They voted
That was for the
operations center, the rezoning
Yeah.
request.
Yeah. How about Cambria?
Cambria is a combination of B3 and R2. The property is split with part of the garage being on the backside parking lot is zoned R2 today, and then the rest of that property is zoned B3.
I'd also like to say thank you to you two, because I truly believe the statements that you made at town council helped the council to see, especially when you shared about the number of buses that service Christiansburg. That hit home. It really did. And emphasizing the fact that, it's Christiansburg High School, Christiansburg Middle School, Christiansburg Elementary, because I think as a community, sometimes people forget that we as a board, students are first.
Right.
And they come first. And we are to look out for every group, not just one certain ones and one certain area of our county. So letting them see that Christiansburg plays a big role in those buses, and the Christiansburg students that are riding those buses, that was huge. And I think it really opened their eyes to realize, wow, yeah, we do use 28 of those buses just for Christiansburg. So I appreciate you, just that educational piece of letting them see that, it's the whole county, not just, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Well, I just wanted to circle around on my thought here on this. I just want to make sure, Tommy, on two things. Number one, I want to make sure that, the town has approved this for us. I just want to make sure we're working with them on this one too. I don't expect if it's, I think I've been to that property. If it's B3 and R2, that's probably the appropriate zoning there. But again, I don't want to speak for the town. So I guess just as one request, could we have somebody reach out to either, their town manager, assistant town manager, zoning?
We communicated with their staff throughout the process in my 2+ years here.
Okay.
We've had numerous conversations
So you're
with their
confident that
administration
they're okay
as
with
well
this?
as their elected officials.
Okay.
They've been well aware of it.
Because the flip side of that is this is also an opportunity for a rezoning if it was needed, if they requested it, if it matched better into their master plan. And
From their master plan, it fits.
Yeah. Okay.
They may ask somebody that's a buyer to take that R2 designation on that small piece, but it's on the back end of the property.
Okay.
And that'll be up to whoever would potentially buy that property, would be the entity that would do the rezoning.
Okay.
Because it would fit whatever their intended use of that property is in relationship with the town's master plan. Because there's a lot of things you can do at that particular site. You could go commercial. You could also go residential with or you can do a combination. You also have the ability with that maintenance buildings, you could do a historic tax credit. So there's lots of potential, but that'll be defined by whoever's the ultimate buyer.
Okay.
They're also a part of our Greater Montgomery meeting that we have every month, and we discuss all of these topics there. So they've been aware of this for the last 2 years.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I think they're excited about what could go there. It could be a nice site for residential or a business
Yes, sir.
in that area. And it's a great location in terms of how it connects to the interchange for 460, just less than a mile up the road there. So,
There we go. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We approve the proceeding with the market property sale. The next one is our policy 7-1.4.
okay, this is the first reading of the new restraint and seclusion policy. Mr. Garrettson and Dr. Walker have worked on this together and have consulted with our attorney. The policy details guidelines for the use of restraint and seclusion, the necessary training involved, incident documentation and reporting, and provisions for annual review. We'll ask you to approve this policy at our next meeting. You all like to answer any questions? You have any questions regarding this?
Any questions right now? Board members or?
So whenever we're talking about restraining our students, it always raises some eyebrows. So in reading through this, get a little concerned about making sure that everyone understands that these are students, okay? And not folks who need to be treated any other way. So it just really kind of unnerved me a little bit. So if you all can help me understand why we need to make sure that we're how we make sure that folks are doing what they need to do and not going overboard.
I think it's a great question, Ms. Franklin, and I think it probably would raise a lot of eyebrows, just like yours, when you see a policy like this. I think it does say several times in this proposed policy that this is always the last option, and this always comes after you've tried many, many, many other strategies. And I think it does list there toward the middle of the policy the various conditions where this would be used. And again, it still says as a last resort. I think one of the worries that our offices shared when we discussed the policy in the absence of one, this isn't an update, this is a brand new policy. This does happen on occasion. And when it does, we need to be sure that we have clear expectations, clear understanding, the documentation piece. The division has, to our special education office, worked with specific training. CPI is the program we use right now for a number of years, but we never had the policy to back it up. So we really feel like the move toward the policy is not so much a statement of saying we intend to do this a lot or this needs to happen more, but it's more a matter of saying this does occasionally happen, and we need to make sure that our parents, our students, our staff members all know what is expected and what should be done and when it should be done and what should not be done and when it should not be done. So I think it speaks to your point of being very clear and very specific in how we would ever handle a situation like this. And of course, always, it's a student we're talking about. It's a young person, which has to be handled always with the utmost care and respect.
Okay. Dr. Walker.
Yes. Along with that, the Project Prevention Institute training, the CPI, that Mr. Garrison spoke about, there's a heavy focus on de-escalation techniques, The first 3 chapters of that training focuses on de-escalation, the crisis cycle, understanding students, how to read students, also understanding yourself. When you put the staff person, when they put themselves in how to read the crisis cycle, also to read yourself, how do staff, how do they react, how do they, perform, de-escalating students. So there's a heavy focus on de-escalation up front. Jason was correct, we've been using the CPI for a number of years. Currently, we have about 10 elementary schools who participate in training. There are 8 secondary schools who've had staff do training. So staff are trained, certified for 2 years in a 2-year cycle. We currently have 1 trainer. We are increasing that, the trainers to 4 for the upcoming school year. So there is a strong focus on making sure that staff are doing the right thing, reading the situation correctly, and utilizing the de-escalation techniques first. And also, we're going to have a push for disability awareness for the various disability categories for students with special needs, so that staff can understand the various disabilities, and so they can be able to work with students with disabilities de-escalation wise, and also understanding the underlying factors of disability. So that way, with the combination of the two, we can really handle students proactively instead of reactively, and so that the situation can be de-escalated, and so we can be able to work with students in the classroom, and so that we can de-escalate situations appropriately.
It was one of the biggest, takes I think I took from the School of Conference that I attended either last year or the year before. And in fact, it was presented by our school board attorney, San Anderson. And the question, it was a crowd. It wasn't personal, but the question they asked is, your school board has a restraint policy? And at that time, of course, I couldn't remember top of my head whether we had it or not. But I remember coming back and looking and mentioning, I think, either Dr. Meyer or Ms. Whitaker, that, we probably need to have one. So I'm glad, I think to be on the safe side, it's a good one to have. Thank you. Any other questions? And this will come next meeting for us to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, the legislative policy reviews are provided by our attorneys with Sands Anderson. We brought these policies to you at the last meeting for first review. Tonight, we're asking you to approve these legislative policy changes. Ms. Whitaker is going to clear a couple of things up here.
I must make a motion, approve the legislative policy updates as presented.
Why don't we wait until she finishes?
I was going to have it in the discussion section, but,
Okay, either way.
Either way, yeah. Go ahead, Ms. Whitaker, sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm sorry, I misspoke. The information from the legislation is in the updates, but we don't have the revised policy from our attorneys yet. They wanted to wait until the guidance that will be released from the state in December, stating exactly how it was spelled out. I think we could move it sooner if we chose to do that, but the concern there is in recording students. And so we'd have to look a little bit into, when a student registers right now, it's male or female. And so we haven't been able to give a different code within the system. And so I remember there was some information yesterday in a webinar about those changes, but I think we're just waiting to get everything right in place so that we can have both the policy and the way for students to identify themselves at the same time.
Okay.
So I apologize for misspeaking.
That's okay.
So can we talk to our attorneys to see if we can move a little quicker if need be?
Absolutely.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. I thought we were moving on it. Okay, I apologize.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the legislative policy updates as presented?
So
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any other questions regarding any other policy items? And these are all, as they come out of the General Assembly. Am I right? Yep.
So we just approved them to be changed on our books, which I'm just like, why we approve something they've already done?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Any other questions, discussions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We approve our legislative policy updates.
Okay, thanks. Next, anti-bias, anti-racism training, acronym ABAR training. We provided you with information on the division's anti-bias, anti-racist training that will be held this year. We are offering, actually, no, all of our teachers, administrators will be taking the 2 sessions. The first session is a 3-hour session. The second is a 2-hour session. We've actually set them up on Wednesdays, during the remote days. And they will have all completed these by the end of October. And so there's a wish that the board participates in this as well. So I just need to know how the board would like to proceed.
Just to wrap up a little bit, when Ms. Diggs mentioned that she's about to get in touch with the individuals to put together these sessions, I remember, if you remember, board members, I sent you an email regarding our participation, and I think I received reply probably from a couple of you, and preferences were different in terms of some prefer some evening maybe options, and some who would like to do it with as a board, whole group with superintendent or leadership team, and then some wanted to do it with staff members. So it's all now open to discussion. How would you like to proceed with our training?
Well, I think I sent a note to Dr. Meyer answering today. I think whatever will allow us to have the best chance of doing the training live is probably what I would prefer. Just, having it be in the middle of the day. I basically favored individual just because I figured that would give us, more flexibility, because I think it's important I'm looking forward to taking it, and I'm happy to take it with any of you. But if we try to get 7 schedules lined up in the middle of the day, it may never happen. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Any other thoughts, board members?
That's what I was going to say. I'm more than happy to do it anytime, other than all of these are on Wednesday. I can't take 2 hours off I just can't do it. That's not a good day for me. I assume this would be maybe something in the evenings that we would do. I didn't know that it would be a daytime thing.
Yeah, 2 sessions, one 3-hour work and the other one is 2-hour work. So we are total 5-hour. I think we have to spend, but I realize that they're all Wednesdays.
It's a hard day for me to take off.
Of course, that's the intention as all staff members,
I don't have the people, especially right now during everything that's going on. It's
It doesn't have to be the same day. They're the same training, like you could come to 1 3-hour and then come to a 2-hour the second.
Two different trainings. But
Ms. Diggs, do you want to come up and have some questions about this?
So I believe it's important for us to do this as a board. We did not have a retreat this year because of the restrictions from the governor. A total of 5 hours with these trainings here, which basically is half a day. I think it's important as the leadership in this district that we sit down and have this training in person along with staff, because it sends the message that from the top down, this is something that we feel is important for our students and for our teachers and staff.
okay. If we, as the board, decide to do that, then I would need to do it toward the end of the month, because that's my only opportunity. So it's up to the board whether they can do that. And I know not everybody can. Not saying you need to work to my schedule, but we're slower at the end of the month, and it's just something, it may be 5 hours, but that's almost a whole day for some of us. So
Are we talking about making a special, would there be a different session, or?
Well, that's what we
Or
would
is that
have
not
to
the intent?
arrange,
Yeah.
you know, because we've scheduled all of them. It would, you know, we would have additional cost, you know, to do it.
If we do it through teaching tolerance.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And so another option that I sort of just thought of, and it's totally up to you, is, you know, I think by next month we'll be going back to a work session type of thing for the second meeting of the month. And in fact, we talked about moving that second meeting for a work session. And that's a great thing to do during a actual work session. And we'd probably do them at the PD center. And so maybe we could do it the second meeting of the month for 2 months, one month and one the next. And that would be 3 hours for one and 2 hours for the other. Then we would be doing it all together, and we'd be doing it at a board during our board meeting. And then two, our administrative team is here, and that's when we can
Yep.
do it then as well.
Yeah, I think that probably will be more convenient,
Yeah.
schedule-wise
with
and
that.
time-wise for all board
I
members.
mean, it's a work session and
Yeah.
something we
So Ms. Dix,
can work.
do they do evening work?
We can pay them to do probably anything.
Yeah, I was going to say, we are paying them. I'm sure we could work something out.
Yeah, and we can
Thank you.
ask too. I mean, we're doing all the teachers virtually because of there's 65 in a section.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
in the
understandable.
situation. But if we, you know, we're doing pretty good at maximizing our capacity at the PD room because of its size.
Yeah.
And in fact, we figured out a configuration for social distancing today to make it even better. And we ended up just on the floor counting. No, it's 31.
Yeah.
We could all be on the floor.
Yeah.
Doing that,
Yeah,
doing
that
it
would
live
be nice.
in person, and then we would just that'll be when we do it. We do it with the board
Yep.
as well,
Mhm.
and we're all at a board meeting anyway.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
winner. And I understand that the setup here on Wednesdays, because we said Wednesdays no school and it's going to be PD for our staff. So that is perfect. But for all of us to have different schedules, I think that will be wonderful to make it work. That way we can be all there and we
So
can be
I'll-
together.
So I'll have Ms. Diggs check with them
Yes.
and you know, check that second meeting and
And it will likely be tailored since the audience is a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's not teachers and administrators.
How do we feel? Let's see. I'm thinking second meeting in October, second in November. See if we can do those dates.
Second in November will not work because that's usually Thanksgiving week. We don't meet. We only have one meeting in
Well,
November.
the reason why is because we
We
go
used
to
to go to
VSBA.
VSBA.
I was gonna say, we're
And
not
VSBA has
having
been
that, so-
canceled
That's
this
also
year.
true. There's no VSBA
So
in
we could
person.
probably
That's
find
right.
a Tuesday,
I have to think
Just do
that's
it
a different year.
do it
Yeah.
then.
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
the reason I'm
perfect.
hesitant for
yeah,
September
that's true.
is because it's about a week after we start back to school.
Yeah.
And I don't know what y'all are going to have to talk about then.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I like
That's all unknown.
That might be a really, really work fest.
Yeah, I like to
Yeah.
think by October we have some idea
Sounds
what's
sounds
going on.
good. That makes sense.
So but we'll finalize it, make sure everybody's still good with those, and try to keep it at the board meeting times. Okay, but we will get it done.
Yes.
Is that
Thank
the
you.
plan?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Does everyone
Absolutely.
agree with that?
Yes,
Is that okay?
that's perfect.
I haven't looked at the calendar, but as long as it's not the same week as Thanksgiving, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
If you end up with the
but
Thanksgiving.
usually Tuesdays are okay.
Oh, they're perfect, yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm stay to whenever.
Yeah, I mean,
So
definitely.
we'll get a date out to you. Just note that a date that we're not.
Yeah.
All right. So let's look at the calendar. Talk
Yeah.
to the folks there. Is
Yes,
that okay?
that is fine.
all
Thank
right.
you, Mr.
Very good. Thank y'all. That's good. All right. Let's see. I guess it's my turn still.
And the next is calendar.
Oh, yeah, the calendar. All right. So the school board will consider several updates to the 2020-2021 school calendar based on the adjustment start date and our adjusted school schedule. Our team's here to answer any questions or concerns that you have. Actually, Mr. Knott, I'd like for him to step up. He is our lead on maneuvering that calendar. So we have several questions and some changed based on from the last time, based on the change in the start date. So it made some changes to the actual questions. All right. But what we want you to do is to simply vote on every one because everyone has sort of they can actually change other parts of the calendar. What will happen is we'll go through this tonight, and we want you to vote on the final calendar tonight because we got to move forward with it. But I will not be able to show you the exact. We can, based on what you voted on, because anytime you take a day out, it adds a day. It's going to we're going to make adjustments. Any adjustments will be made at the end of the school year. That makes sense. Okay. We won't put things in the middle of the school year based on this, because I think they're covered in here as well. So, Ms. Drake, how are we going to go through each one of these? Who's going to ask these questions?
Board Docs recently updated, and so we can do multiple motions within the same agenda item. That's why you saw only one agenda item for the calendar tonight, but we will go through. Ms. Karan will ask for the motion. As always, a board member, she always states one, but a board member may make any motion at that time, and we'll roll through. I do ask for your patience. I'll be manually inputting those motions. I can't pre-populate them just because of the way the system works. But you'll actually see, they'll come up on the screen the same way. The system will work pretty much the same. That's how the motions will work.
So, Danny, will you read the questions?
I will read the motion.
You're reading the questions.
They have a list as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all have the paper copy?
Yeah,
Okay,
I do.
Excellent. And if you have questions about any, we did put recommended on several by our administrative team have made recommendations. And so if you got questions as to why, we'd be glad to answer.
The first one is, may I have a motion to use inclement weather days as virtual learning days?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion second. Now it's open to discussions, board members.
Okay, so the first thing that hit me was, so we have students who may not be at home where they have access and they have to go to a grandparent or family or somewhere, childcare for that day, and may not be able to have access. How do we?
Right. So it would be the students without, if they are staying at home, we know the students that are without cell service, okay, which it's under 100 for the division. And so what would happen is we would ask teachers to create basically snow day assignments, virtual learning day assignments prior to, sort of like what we would call the emergency sick plan. Teachers are asked to have a sick plan, lesson plan for the day, just in case something happens and it can't come at the last minute, that kind of thing. So that's what we would do with these weather days. Teachers would create assignments in advance, and the kids would actually have those assignments. And most likely when I have to have access to the internet. We talked about this, Mr. Wickham, about we would probably for those students use a flash drive process with those. For the kids who don't have access to the internet on those days, for inclement weather days.
But if they're not getting the same instruction pertaining to what they're studying at the time, then they're going to be losing.
No. So what? Now teachers have the autonomy to do it different ways, and I did it as a teacher. Sometimes I would create emergency lesson plans based on the unit that I was teaching, which would supplement what I'm doing at the moment. My emergency plan was basically a review of an important concepts that we had already done that needed to be practiced and reviewed. That's the way, as a teacher, I found it to create an emergency lesson plan like a snow day or weather day. The good thing is too, there are a lot of times and a lot of days when we know we're going to have an inclement weather day. I mean, there are a few surprises here and there, but I mean, at least, I usually hear from teachers and kids that it's getting ready to snow before I figure it out myself. And so I don't have to look at the weather map. So, so that would cue teachers to, okay, give assignments. If tomorrow we're not here, here's your assignment. Here's what you're going to do as a remote learner. I look at this as not being something we do just this year, but, snow days may be gone forever. And that is an amazing thing. And it might be a good thing that comes out of this. And then you create calendars that are actually exact calendars too, that don't move around. So it will be an experiment and we'll have to get used to it.
Use everything.
So yeah. So
Any other questions regarding that first one? Then all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Shall I wait a little bit before go second one?
Okay.
I'm good? Okay. Number 2, may I have a motion to adjust all early dismissal days for PD to full student days?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and second. Any discussions, board members?
Okay, so since we're having Wednesdays as
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yet also it creates an inequity for our AM, PM kids.
Yeah, because you can't have a
It would
half day
always
of a
be the PM
half
kids
day.
who would miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it just creates a equitable day.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're good with number 2. Number 3, may I have a motion to adjust all early dismissal days before holidays to closed dates?
So moved.
Ms. Parkin seconded. Any discussions regarding
So I'm
number
gonna
3?
probably
That
start.
would again be an equity issue. Sorry.
So I'm gonna sound a little bit like, I'm gonna start sounding like a broken record on some of these, but I share the concern that we've heard from many parents, and we heard in person from some of the parents tonight that we are losing instructional time. So, for me, the first few are probably not controversial. We start to get into some of these holidays and breaks, and I did hear from both parents and teachers about this. I had a good conversation with a teacher from the calendar committee that I didn't always see eye to eye on, which was great. We had a really good conversation about this. But there does need, in my mind, I think there does need to be a balance between, this is still intense for people. We still need these breaks, and I want to give those. But I also want to be careful, I guess, because of the days, every day that we're, all the time that we're losing, every extra day just becomes tough. So, for me, I think is it the March 31st? I think is that the one that is before spring break?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Which days specifically are they?
Yeah, I
If
don't
they're
know,
not-
because we don't have the regular calendar. That was the show.
Yeah, we don't have the regular one, so.
We
I
sort of
don't-
have it as
Is
if
it
this
the-
was done.
November 24th would be before Thanksgiving. December 22nd would be before winter break. And then the 31st of March was before spring break, is before spring
Yeah.
break.
Before
Yes.
spring break, yeah.
Wait, what, Thanksgiving, the 24th? Because on here, on both of these, it has it as school days.
Well, these are, the ones you're looking at there do not reflect the things that we're talking about in the
Okay.
questions. These are additional, sorry, I should have brought that up with,
Yeah,
thank you.
Well, I don't
Get
see
a
the,
copy
I
of
guess
that.
this is hard without the regular calendar.
Right, so we need
It's
to just
kinda
go
hard
through
to-
each date and show you, or somehow project it, which ones they are, or make a copy of it to show you. But just for each one, go through what should be, Danny, yellow.
November 24th should be in a normal calendar, would be an early release day before Thanksgiving break. December 22nd, again, would be a early release day before winter break. And then March 31st would have been a early release day prior to spring break.
That's great.
And so the recommendation is to have those closed
Right, because
instead
then
of
you
half
get,
days?
you
Yes.
get the inequity of the
Yeah,
PM.
we
student.
don't, our recommendation fully is not to have any half days either.
Right.
Open
I
it
understand
or
that
close it.
piece. I get that. I'm just wondering why we wouldn't do full, I guess I'm thinking like how Mr. Trebek is thinking. Why would those not be full school days? Why do we need to have off an extra day? So now it's taking more time off than we had before.
There's a consequence.
And here we're trying to save time and now we're going to take an extra half day. And I don't see why on the 24th that was a relatively new one anyway. We didn't used to have that day off. I don't see why you need the 22nd of December. I don't see why you need 31st of March. I'd say
What's
they.
the,
And that's
work
actually
day.
one of the options on here, that the early dismissal days will change to, before holidays, will
Right.
change to full school days.
Yeah, right, that's, but I'm just saying that here, it's recommended to be the third one, and I'm questioning why that was the recommendation.
Well, there are other recommendations in here too that would eliminate some other days.
Well, I
And
think we need to eliminate as many as we can.
so that was kind of a compromise there.
Basically, all the rest were to eliminate, and the holidays were to keep.
Mhm.
But I mean, I see the point that is being made for sure, and if I'm hearing a couple of folks that we might need to change that motion, however that will work, Ms. Drake, to making them full school days.
Well, I think maybe
Wanna
maybe the board
proceed?
should talk through each.
Yeah, we want to
one,
first to see if we have enough to go with the full day holiday. Is that what you?
Yeah, if
Because
Ms.
that's
Graham
the
and Ms.
motion,
Hartman
right?
are both keeping their motion and their second as it is, then we would move forward with voting on the motion that is currently in front of the board.
Okay, so the reason why we made these half days was because people travel.
Right.
And that's why, to give folks the time to be.
Heads up, yeah.
Get on the road and kids not missing school and teachers and our staff to be off. And with what we're in right now, car is the best way for folks to be traveling. So I would be in favor of, just taking the day off and letting folks be able to move in their vehicles if that's what they choose to do.
I think I could certainly compromise on some of this. I do agree with Ms. Cass on, I mean, looking at the actual calendar, let's see, where are we? November. Part of the problem with November 24th and December 22nd is you create a situation where you only have one day for the week.
Right.
It's awkward. I think so. In some ways, I agree with you, Ms. Franklin, but
Does that create an equity if we only have a Monday and not a Tuesday?
I don't understand.
Yes.
With the 50-50.
At the middle school, you would
It's on the-
not be in certain classes
Right.
for that.
Which is really can be, it's never fun.
I think there are advantages and disadvantages to both.
Yes, I
Yes,
think so.
there's no doubt
yeah.
about that. I see all the.
And I don't know that it's all or nothing either.
I think because we are.
The March 31st falls on a Wednesday, which is a day that,
It's an off day anyway, yeah.
it's an off day for students, but not for teachers.
Right, but I mean, we talked about this today, just let you know the possibility of, if we get into this, everywhere from, if we go full remote, it doesn't mean that we cannot go on Wednesdays then.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we are at a place that semester, if we are bringing kids in, that we can't go on Wednesdays then. That Wednesday is for that deep cleaning. It's for our staff to get used to the structure, and our custodians to get used to it. And I would love to consider some point further that it becomes a 5-day week.
Well, and I would also add to that too, that on some of the days that we have holidays, maybe on a Monday or something like that, that the board would consider maybe adding. I don't know if it's possible logistically. You guys will have to tell me if it's possible to add a Wednesday back in.
I think we've got them all on here, don't we? All those holidays.
We've got all the Monday
Yeah.
holidays on there, yes.
Yeah.
Talk about, so.
Yeah.
So I'll take my comments back, looking at the calendar and seeing your point of, it's just one day that would be in school. Yeah. Okay.
So the motion right now is for having holidays to close for everyone. We're ready to move on. And if we'll see if the motion
Oh,
carries
sure.
or not
Yeah.
at this time.
Okay.
You want a roll call for this one, Ms. Drake?
Ms. Bond?
No.
Mr. Chewbacca?
No.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Ms. Graham?
Yeah.
Ms. Cass?
I want to make sure I'm if I say no, that means it'll be full days?
No, ma'am.
No, that
There
means
would be
that this
another
motion
on
It'd be another motion, okay. No.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Karan?
Yes.
Motion fails.
Now I'll make a motion. May I have a motion to adjust all early dismissal days before holidays to all school days? Full school days.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion second for number 3, first item. Early dismissal dates before holidays will change to full school days. Any discussion on that? If not, let's get to, well, we can say all those in favor at this time. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're good. So they will be all school days. Number 4, may I have a motion to adjust the early dismissal date for Virginia Tech football game to a full student day?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions on this one?
I apologize. I missed the motion in the second.
Oh, I'm
Can you
sorry.
help me, please?
It's,
Ms. Parton and Ms. Graham, thank you.
Yes,
I
that's
apologize.
right.
Ms. Graham and Ms. Parton.
no problem. Any questions regarding this? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We go with the recommendation. Number 5, how should the 2020-2021 calendar adjust for election day / fall break?
So yeah, we recommended the second option where schools will be open on November 2nd instead of the fall break, but
Oh,
closed.
yeah, I have to read the motion, sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, closed.
Yeah, I was reading the question here. I forgot to read the motion. May I have a motion to adjust fall break so that schools are open on November 2nd and November 3rd is a teacher workday?
So
I'm
moved.
sorry, can I ask a question first? Does that mean that the fall break, hold on, let me pull it back up.
It means there is no fall break.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was asking.
Right. So
Yeah.
November 2nd is a school day, and then November 3rd is a teacher work day. You know, we just don't feel comfortable having our students in the building on this upcoming election day by no means.
I thought election day was a holiday. anyway.
Definitely.
Election day has always been a teacher work day, so a holiday for students, but a teacher work day.
But I thought it was a state holiday now. I thought it was passed as a state holiday.
I don't know.
It might
It
be.
wasn't
Might
last
be.
year.
I'm pretty sure it was.
It wasn't last year.
It wasn't last year. They just, Governor Northam just passed it. I'm almost positive. If it's a state holiday, we might want to consider giving teachers off that day.
Well, I mean, we're not
trying to get rid of it
we're not
anyway.
connected as a state employee. So, I mean, that's up to you though. Y'all want, is that one of the recommendations?
It should be a national holiday.
No,
Yeah.
no, yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry, go ahead. You were gonna,
Oh,
Motion.
I'll motion.
So
Second.
there's motion and second.
second.
So what's the motion?
Motion is to adjust fall break so the schools are open on November 2nd and November 3 is a teacher work day
Election day.
and election day, yes.
So,
I think this year, I'm sorry. No.
no, go ahead, Sue.
I was just thinking this, and I realized, I think this year is gonna, election day could be, it's a big day. I don't know. I wish there was an option here to actually have school on the 2nd, but have November 3rd as a day off for teachers also.
How about 12-month employees?
And everyone, yes,
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
there's a lot of other
All
employees
staff
in
and
these
employees,
buildings.
everyone, yes.
So,
Well,
up to you.
That's my recommendation.
And again, I think in most years, maybe that's the case. I guess this year there's been quite a concerted push for, I know the registrar's office is open. People can do early voting. People can do mail-in voting. I don't know on that one. This is still one of those that well, the question I had on this is typically for the schools, are any of our schools used as polling places? I think a
Yes.
few of
Yes,
them
sir.
are,
Many
right?
of them
Few.
are.
Four, I
Um,
believe.
what is,
Six, I'm sorry, six.
what is the extent of the space that it will be accessible by the public? Is it
It's-
limited?
Yeah, it's usually only like at Linkus and at Beeks, it's the Kappa Gymatorium, which has an outdoor entrance,
Mhm.
and that's what's used there. At Christiansburg Middle School and Blacksburg Middle School,
We come
it's
into
the
that
gym,
The auxiliary
the
gym.
community entrance.
Yep.
So I mean, they are
Sure,
separated.
yeah. So my question, I'm sorry. go ahead.
So let me add to that. We had a primary in February, right, Tommy?
Yes, ma'am.
And we had to ask our staff, our bus drivers specifically, to see if they would volunteer to help us manage that workflow because we wanted to keep it so safe for our students.
Mhm.
So that's an added responsibility that MCPS has to take on
Mhm.
if we have students in the building.
Oh, I don't.
Oh, I
think
don't
we
want
should have-
students.
Yeah, I'm
Anybody
not
in
at all arguing for students in the building.
No.
But what this goes back to what I was saying earlier about, I'm trying to fight for every single day we can get, right? And so we normally have a teacher workday on Wednesday. So if we have a teacher workday on Tuesday, can the deep cleaning be happening that day and the rest of the building? And I know that we'd probably have to ask something of our staff then to have at least those public places ready for the next morning. But could the
Yeah.
Wednesday be a full day?
I think that's going to be tough on parents personally.
Yeah, people with childcare, if people have
Childcare
a
might be an
established
issue.
schedule, that would be hard
Yeah.
to do.
Sort of a change in schedule.
What,
Maybe.
Yeah.
what do you mean as far as?
Childcare.
Normally they have Wednesdays on their calendar, that Wednesday's the day that their children aren't at school. Now we're going to say they are at school.
Yeah,
For, for,
Yeah,
for
that's-
certain days.
I just think that's going to be tough for parents to remember.
it's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a calendar, but okay.
Yeah, I'm not,
I
I don't feel that strongly. I do feel strongly, because I think election day is an important day, and I think it makes a statement that we allow people to have that day off, but I could compromise.
Now, if you do choose for our staff to come in on that day as we had planned, I mean, we're very flexible in allowing people
Oh, I
to
know
go
that.
vote and have time
Yeah.
to vote.
Mhm,
Make sure that
absolutely.
they are able to, they're not punching the time clock to, and we will be very flexible to make sure folks are allowed to go and cast their ballot and not hold them from doing so.
So the motion is still for the recommended one, schools will be open on November 2nd and November 3rd will be teacher workday, which is an election day. No further discussion?
Google whether the governor
I'm so sorry.
changed that?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Did anybody Google whether the governor had made it a holiday? He did?
He did.
Yeah.
That's what-
It's a
yeah,
state.
I remember getting the email that
State holiday. all right.
it's a state holiday. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that one.
That's okay.
So that means that we have to,
We're not state employees.
No, we're not state.
No, we're not
That's right.
required.
Yeah.
that's right.
But I mean, basically, we're going to have 2 teacher workdays in a row then. Is that correct?
Correct. Wednesdays, it's a teacher workday, but it's actually also, we'll explain to you, probably next meeting, we need to explain this to our board. It is a student contact day. We're still are expecting teachers and students to have contact with one another on that day. In fact, that's something sort of new that's come up. To actually count it as a day of instruction, there has to be two-way communication between students and teachers, even on that remote learning day. And to actually count the time for our days in school. And so what we're creating is basically on Wednesdays, office hours will be for all teachers from 10 to 12 in the morning. Students will be expected to complete a check-in sheet prior to 10 a.m. in the morning for their classes. And then their teachers will go through their check-in sheets to make sure they've done it, to count them. On those check-in sheets, there'll be questions such as, do you need me to contact you? What do you need assistance with? So teachers then can interact with students. And so it's a work day, but it's not it's a different kind of work day than teachers would have been used to, where they're free from interacting with kids.
Mhm.
They will be asked to interact with kids on those Wednesdays.
Okay, that's a good reminder. Thank you.
Right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye. Me. Should be the holiday.
No.
The 3rd should be the holiday.
I heard Miss Franklin and
Miss
Miss Cass.
Franklin and Miss
Did I miss
Cass?
anybody?
Ms. Cass, I think, said no.
Yeah,
already.
Miss Franklin and Miss Cass.
Yes,
Motion carries.
Motion carries.
thank you. But almost it has been 2 hours. Anybody would like to take a break at number 6, or shall we continue? I'm just checking. We're good? All right. Number 7, may I have a motion to keep Monday, January 18 as a...
We're on number
We're number
6. Number 6.
I'm reading number 6, but saying number 7.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
Between looking these questions and this motions confusing me, I think I should look at one of them. May I have a motion to keep Monday, January 18 as a holiday for Martin Luther King Day?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
I think with everything that's been happening in our country, this one's an important
Yeah,
one
that's a no
to
adjustment,
keep. I
yeah,
think it makes
required.
a statement. I'd still, I won't belabor it past this, but I do think that on these shorter weeks, maybe maybe the teachers will adjust, I think, on the Wednesdays on these shorter weeks. I definitely don't want to lose that time.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're good with number 6. Now number 7. May I have a motion to change Monday, February 15 to a full student day?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions regarding that one? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Number 8. May I have a motion to keep the spring break dates the same as previously scheduled?
I recommend.
So that means April 1st, 2nd, and 5th remain as a holiday.
Will you make, oh, it is up.
It is up.
I have a question on this. Let's say that, hopefully this isn't the case, but that we're still, doing half students, AM, PM, closed on Wednesdays. As the time came closer, so even in January, could we then change those spring break days to full student school days? Or is that unfair?
Well, you can do what obviously you want to do.
Sure.
I think, this is the time of year that families do make plans
Okay.
Yeah.
to travel during this holiday.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you.
And keep in mind, March doesn't have any days off, and we just took away President's Day. So that's going to be a long February and March. And I do know Easter is a big travel day. For
Good
families,
point.
so-
Good point. Okay, thank you for answering that.
I do not have a motion yet for this one. May I have a motion to keep the spring break dates the same as previously scheduled?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion, Ms. Bond, and second, Ms. Franklin. Any discussions or any further discussions?
So I'll agree that we do need to have a break at this time. I would be in favor of, I do think there's less travel going on. I think there's other alternatives for people who do travel at this time. So I would probably be in, we're going to be at that point where I think those AP teachers that we've been hearing about are probably going to be pulling their hair out again. I want to fight for every day that we can. And I think, I'd rather see the 5th go away I'd rather see the 5th be an instructional day.
Any other comments? Let's have a roll call with this one, please.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
No.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Karan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Let's see. Going into 9. Oh, that's the end. May I have a motion to base the calendar on 990 instructional hours, making the last day of school at the end of May?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any questions? And anybody requires any explanation? 180 versus 990?
I require explanation.
Yes, absolutely. Some has to do with, of course, AP testing is over at that time. Something has to do with construction that we're incurring at CPS, CES, and Bellevue. And I'm asking Mr. Krantz to talk to you about how that affects those buildings next summer. That's a busy, important time for us over there. And let me say this too. Traditionally we've started with a 180-day calendar, and I can't remember in the past 5 years that we ended up with a 180-day calendar. We always reverted back to a 990 calendar. Anyway, because of so many snow days.
Or rain days lately.
Or rain flood days, yeah, inclement weather days. And so we felt that, by doing that's the first question you answered, right? Very important for this to happen. And so since we are doing the no inclement days anymore, there'll be remote learning days, then this would help us by the end of May. It will create that time that Tommy's going to talk about, and not push the end against the beginning of the following as well. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
What's going on?
So right now, our plan on CES and CPS is to begin construction any day now here in August, as soon as we get the site permit. Branch has their portables on site for the construction trailers. We've identified the laydown areas, and you'll start seeing things going. We still intend to have all the new additions at CES and CPS completed before the end of July of 2021, with the intent that we'll move students and staff into those rooms, allowing us to then jump on to the renovation both at CES and CPS. If for some reason the summer gets shorter, what it does is it doesn't give us enough time to really do a good transition there, which will increase the costs that the subcontractors are giving us. We've priced out everything related to construction at all 3 schools. We're right under the $35 million of the bond issue, and it would not take much for us to then find ourselves in a situation of being significantly over that number and then struggling to find those funds to complete those 3 projects. So I know that seems trivial because you're talking about the academic side, but there is a huge component because of the construction projects we have on that we have as much summer as possible.
That's when the work would be.
We'll be moving into new
current.
and starting the renovations and getting ahead before students get in the buildings.
Right, and get some places.
Any discussions?
So the 990 versus 1080, right? Is that-
180.
180.
Normally it's 1080. and
180.
180.
180 days
100, which is,
or 990 hours.
which 180 days is approximately what? 1,000? Is it based on 6-hour days? Is that what it's based
Well,
on?
the state bases that on 5.5-hour days.
5.5-hour days.
And we go to school 6.5-hour days, but you cannot count lunch. So basically take 30 minutes off for lunch. So we're in school for 6 hours a day.
So it allows you to compact.
Yes, it
Okay,
does.
got it. Okay.
Which several years ago when we ran into 15 or 16 snow days,
Mhm.
that we added that time to our days to make sure we had 990 needed.
Right.
The models that you see here will need just a little bit of adjusting because of the votes that we took before. For example, removing the early release day for Virginia Tech football and taking President's Day out. But these are pretty good representations of what it would look like.
So what would that be the last day then? That's what we just
That's
did.
what it's hard to sit here and do
Am
the
I ahead
math
of
real
the
quick.
game here?
It's going to be, I think we've added more days than we have
Taken away.
taken
Yeah,
away,
taken
right?
away,
So we think we need to go back and calculate
We
it.
added?
but it's going to back it up
Yeah, because we've taken away some.
maybe a couple days.
So let me ask this, there's no requirement that we stop right at 990 hours, is there?
No.
If we,
And it's not. This is
Because
actually not stopping. This is not exactly 9-9.
Okay, yeah,
990 hours on a 6-hour day is 165 days. And the 990 calendar that you see here actually takes us to 168 days, three additional days above the 990 already.
Yeah, it's hard to, I had a good discussion with a parent today via email, I guess, about this and about, I mean, I certainly favor using the 990 hours. I think it gives us more flexibility. Given the situation we're in, I do wonder if we have to put a stake in the ground on when the last day is today, seeing as there's just so much uncertainty between now and the end of the year. And again, coming back to the instructional component, and Tommy definitely threw a wrench in my thinking here, but coming back to the instructional component and coming back to, and this is even beyond, at this point, we're already past the College Board issue, right? But even just with our, all of our other teachers and grades and stuff, to assess how things are going with our model, how did things go and who knows, maybe by then we're there 100%, maybe by then we're fully remote. I don't know, and so I'm in favor of using the 990 because I think it's more predictable. And I think it gives us the flexibility, but I guess I would caution us maybe, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I would caution us on putting a hard stake in the ground until maybe we get at least a few quarters into this. And, I know we won't have the inclement weather days, or maybe not as many, but
I think a hard stake is probably necessary.
To not to get into June, definitely.
Folks start making plans and.
Right. Why is Memorial Day on here?
Why is
Memorial Day, are we?
That is by policy a 12-month holiday.
Okay.
So that's why it's
That's for the
included on
12
there.
month, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we wouldn't have to deal with that anyway if it's prior to
1 year I remember us actually working on Memorial
the
Day.
990.
We had, I forgot what year, I was in Christiansburg at that year.
One year we did have the option of working Memorial Day as one of the last work days. And so we had to, principals had to come in, open the buildings up for teachers if they wanted to work that day.
It's Cranston.
Mr. Kubak, I appreciate what you're saying and agree. It's just unfortunate that if there's not a stake this year, it would be difficult for me working with the contractor and the subs that we would have a site that would continue them. You see what I'm saying with that work?
Yeah.
I know it's difficult, but it's just.
Is that
it's
contractor going to
unfortunate.
start on, how many schools at once are they expected to start?
So we're going to start CES and CPS in August.
Okay.
BES, we're waiting to get the final approval from VDOT because we have to do 2 turning lanes there. We currently are scheduled to start that work mid-September. And everything is going to be flying like you wouldn't believe. So.
Okay.
That's when those I'm assuming next summer would be when all 3 offices would be renovated.
Yes, sir.
Most likely that's when
Yes,
the
sir.
office work would be done.
Correct. And then those classrooms at CES, that one back wing.
And then the back wing of CES classrooms have to be redone.
And then CPS
CPS just
internal,
They
inside.
actually need walls.
Yeah.
Put up. Make
So
it work
that's
there.
the
They'll get walls.
most work.
Yeah.
done. Any other discussions on 919?
Just one other comment. Ms. Whitaker reminded me, it is in policy that we do have to have an approved calendar, which has a start and an end date
Yeah.
in
Fair
it.
enough.
So
Yeah, fair enough. That's right.
Thank you.
At this time, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we are basing our calendar, the 990 instructional hours. Now, I have to make one more motion to approve the whole calendar with all the adjustment that we voted on tonight. Last day of school may vary slightly as the administration incorporates the adjustment we just made, in terms of putting all the early releases as a full day and things like that. So may I have a motion to approve the 2020-2021 calendar with all the adjustment voted tonight?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any more discussions or?
Let me say, Mr. Knott will have that calendar calculated in the morning before we send out the response to board meeting, so everyone can see it tomorrow morning based on what was done tonight.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Unless he wants to go back to his office and count right now.
If you'll let me, I can.
You're welcome to. So it's up to you.
I have a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye to our calendar.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm opposing because of the election day, so I won't do the whole calendar.
Yeah, I see.
I agree with everything else, but not the election day.
All right.
I don't know.
Oh, so you're opposed?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I will fix that right now.
Give her a second to change that.
Okay, ready?
She good.
I think we're good.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
All right, next, preparation for health concerns. The school board asked to see a sample letter in preparation for the first COVID positive case in the schools. This letter has been crafted by Mr. Garrettson and Ms. Drake and has been reviewed by the health department. Likely, this letter will be used as the base for a phone call and email, as those methods would reach our families and staff members more quickly. Mr. Garrettson,
Did we put it up on the screen? No.
you all have a copy of that?
No.
So unless I've read this incorrectly, this would only go to the school where there is a case, not the whole district.
Correct. It would only go to a school where a positive case is identified and not to the entire district. That was what you voted on at the,
A school as in just the principal, or a school as in every parent and student in the school?
Every
parent,
family
student.
in the
Okay.
school. Yes, ma'am.
and every staff member, Mr. Garrettson.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And I think it's also probably important to note that there could be some staff members that it could be for multiple schools,
Right.
like a bus driver, for example.
I totally have a problem with this letter, but that goes back to our conversation at the last meeting. Basically, MCPS will work closely with our health department to ensure that appropriate contact tracing is complete, and we ask that you follow their guidance. A contact is defined as someone within 6 feet of a COVID-19 positive person for 15 minutes or more without a face covering. Yeah, I just don't agree with that. So, and now students have on masks and teachers. I guess I'm trying to understand what is that saying? If you could help me. What are we telling the families with this letter?
I think the board, at the last meeting, when we discussed this as one of our decision points, when the decision was made, the board asked us to bring back a sample of what this communication would look like. This example is the sample for your consideration. I believe the letter is intended, as our understanding was when we wrote it, to notify the school that there's been a positive case in the school. It does also identify some other pieces, such as the definition for an exposure, as was explained at the last board meeting, and also gives them some guidance as far as what they might expect. Some families might expect to be contacted by the Department of Health as part of contact tracing. Probably not all families, so it wouldn't be unusual to not get a phone call either, but it also gives them that phone number, that hotline number, if they have questions or concerns that they might want to hear answered by the health department.
So I'm a parent and I have a student in the middle school, and I get a letter that says there's been a case, a confirmed case. Somebody tested positive I'll use Blacksburg Middle School as my example, in Blacksburg Middle School. So then that's all what does the rest, so I'm not going to get nobody's going to contact me. There's not going to be any contact tracing done unless my child was within 6 feet of this COVID-19 person for 15 minutes or more without a face covering?
Based upon the health department's contact tracing, they will determine who would be contacted for additional testing. And again, as Dr. Bissell had stated at the last meeting,
we include that definition of a contact and exposure in the letter, just to help families understand what might lead to that phone call they might receive from the health department.
What will a teacher find out?
They'll get the same letter.
So I won't know if there's a student in my classroom who has tested positive.
Correct, based upon my understanding of the decision made at the last board meeting. And again, for the board, this is.
And no one will contact me because they're going to make this assumption that all the students in my class were wearing a mask the whole time. And so therefore they've never been an unmasked person in front of.
I think the health department.
I'm just trying to understand
Sure,
how.
100%. Legitimate questions, no problem, doing my best to try to answer your concerns. If the health department knows of a positive student, they will reach out to the school and we'll start talking about that student's schedule. We'll start talking most likely to the teacher in the room to say, talk to us about how things have been going. Are people maintaining their 6-foot separation? Are students wearing their masks as they should be? Based upon those conversations, the health department will determine who needs to be recommended for additional testing based upon the answers we provide them.
I gotta say, if I was a teacher and somebody in my classroom tested positive and you told me I wasn't gonna know, I don't know if I'd come to work.
I understand.
I mean, I honestly don't know how you can ask me to stand in a classroom in front of 25, well, I guess now it'll be more like 15 students, probably 4 sets of them a day. Is that basically we're talking 4 sets of maybe 15 students a day? And I'm not even going to know one of them test positive. And there might be one who tested positive, was in my classroom, tested positive, and I don't even know that. Wow, that's concerning.
Well,
to me, it's concerning.
Sure. And again, we submit this to the board as a draft. You can provide whatever guidance you would like in terms of recommendations for changes or additions or deletions.
So the question last time centered around, I looked at it as an issue of how transparent we wanted to be, because it was kind of, do we just tell the parents of the people in that classroom? Do we tell people on the bus? Do we tell the whole school? So telling the whole school, to me, is we're trying to be as transparent as possible. And I think there's pluses and minuses. I think certainly initially, there may be some of those minuses may become pluses later as we work through some of this stuff. But I think this is confusing. Like, to me, this is confusing, and I think the response of some parents is their kids are going to go remote for a few days. I think that we can expect that to be the response. And that's fine. And I think that's, it's their right to know, and it's their right to take those extra precautions if they choose.
And we have that facility
Yeah.
set up.
But I think that what this does is it means that anybody who's concerned in the whole school, then with the lack of information, that's it, right? And I don't know exactly what the wording needs to change or what information needs to be given, but maybe there's a couple letters that need to go out. Maybe one goes out to the school, and then, this one here, and there's an extra paragraph that says, additional letters will go out to the class of, the student affected or whatever. And then in addition to this letter, another letter is sent to parents of that bus route or parents of that classroom. Because I don't know if, I don't know what the privacy guidlines are. I don't know if we can say.
I think we need to be very careful with that. Once you start narrowing that down past the school, into the classroom, into the bus route, you've pretty
cannot
much
identify the student.
Yeah.
There's some hip. Let me ask. Can I ask
Have
this
we
question?
gotten legal guidance on this?
This question might help that Mr. Garrison may know, because there are HIPAA concerns about folks knowing, and teachers technically can't know. But let me ask you this: if a student has, I know people like this comparison, but we still follow a protocol. If there's a flu situation in a school, how do we handle that now?
Same kind of thing. It's a generalized letter.
Does it go to the whole school, the class?
goes to the class.
Yeah, chickenpox. I remember getting
Chickenpox,
letters on chickenpox.
Lice.
Goes to the class as
At
well.
what percentage of students, Mr. Garrettson?
Yeah.
For flu, it's a large percentage.
That's be
So not a single case.
Correct, not a single case.
So it's not one per. So
correct.
I think that might be a little bit of the difference there. Is what a single case versus several in the classroom.
Well, and I think
So-
we have to be careful. I don't want to get into a well, I'm happy to, but I don't want to get into an argument about whether the comparisons between this between COVID-19 and the flu, because I think there are some important differences here.
And like I said,
And whether people subscribe to that or not, I mean, I think we're going to see that in the behavior of our public on this. So, I think that if it was an option last time, we were presented with the option to notify the class, and we were presented with an option to notify the school.
Correct.
And I don't
think we.
maybe somebody can explain to me why doing both of those things becomes legally problematic. I don't know that it does, but
we have to check with our attorney about
The
notifying
classroom part.
about a single case in a classroom before I would feel comfortable saying, hey, you need to move that piece forward, or notifying the teacher due to HIPAA law.
Don't
I
you think
as
it's
long
all?
as we do
I'm sorry.
not identify the person, we're not violating any HIPAA laws because we're not naming anyone. So no one's been identified. Last time I said we need to go as far down as we can.
I agree.
We need to go to the classroom. We need to go to the bus route. We need to let folks know as much as possible, because folks get very, very nervous and upset with uncertainties around this. And if it's a case at Christiansburg Elementary, folks know that. Versus everyone going, is it my school? Because even though that school may have been notified, it may, trust me, once the word goes out that there's a case, especially with social media, it's going to spread like wildfire before we get information out to say it was at Christiansburg Elementary School.
Right.
Right.
I agree, and I understand that you make a good point.
So
I do ask this question too. If it's your child who is that one child in that class who ends up with COVID, do you want everyone in their classroom to know and that teacher to know?
I'd want to name the name.
And then, well, they're going to know when that kid doesn't show up.
How are they going to?
Look,
So-
here's one of the things that happens, and folks, I'm telling you, I have been dealing with this for months. Because I am glad that they heard me and did put in the description of what contact is, which quite frankly, there is a dispute as to whether having a mask on or without the mask is, if that there is even a difference with them. Folks are going to get very upset, very nervous, and you're going to have a panic situation going on. The more people know, the more they're going to be able to understand if they've been exposed. Because, especially children, do not remember everyone who they've been around, or they may not want to be truthful that they were inside those boundaries that they weren't supposed to be in. Therefore, someone who has had a contact is not going to be traced, and we have a possible potential for spread. I mean,
I don't think the teachers have to know who the child is. You need to know. I would want to know a student during this period had COVID. Then I know what I have to do to take care of things in my classroom. I think that also the more we make this sound like we're not saying they have leprosy, we're saying they have COVID. It's the flu. It is a disease. It's very highly transferable. And by making it such this big secret, we're making people feel like, oh my gosh, my kid's got COVID. I can't tell anybody. It's got to be a big giant secret. And it shouldn't be that way because otherwise no one's going to want to say any. I feel like we're making big secrets out of.
I think you just said something too that you might want to think about, and I'm open to anything. You all are going to make this decision. Does it make it less likely for someone to come forward if they think that they're going to be labeled as that child with COVID?
Well,
and then not tell where they had actually been traced, and then the teacher will know who is on remote now, and they were in my class the following day. They will know that.
I think teacher. There is no way you can convince me that teachers should not know that someone in their class. I didn't say which student. That someone in their class, especially elementary school students. I mean, you're talking about, as Penny was saying. If they're first graders, they're not going to remember exactly who they were with and talk to. A teacher needs to know that to make sure that she can protect not just herself, but the rest of the students, or he.
And if you go that direction, that's up to the board. However, I would prefer to run it past our attorney to see what litigation we could get into and how far we want to go. If it puts us in danger, then you all would have to of litigation by releasing more information than he suggests. And that would be up to you, but I think you all would need to know what he thinks the risk would be, and how far
if we do that,
actually go.
If we do that, though, Dr. Meyer, I'd want to know not just what he thinks about giving the full information, but giving, this tidbit of information versus that tidbit of information, because if it comes back, nope, you can't say the school and the class, but you can say the class only, or you can say the school only. Well, then I might go back to saying, well, maybe we should just say the class only, because that's like Ms. Franklin is saying, that's you've dug as deep as you can. You've let the people that are the closest know.
Right.
And I guess then you just have to let social media and the rumor mill spread it instead of us doing that. And maybe that's fine, but I'd be interested to see what our legal counsel
what do you think about, how about
as you
this?
said, the rumor mill spreading it, and that's, people do treat it like it's leprosy. And it although I agree with a lot of the comments are made, it is people are going to be hush hush because it's treated like it's something that is a major, oh my gosh, kind of thing. So whether you say it or whether you don't, that's how people treat people that have it, or look upon those, as you said, rumor mill Facebook. That's what's going to happen. So, I hear it, but to say that it doesn't happen that way, it will.
In the teacher case, I think following Ms. Cass, teacher is gonna know who's absent in the class,
Well, I
all
agree
right?
with that 100%.
And they're gonna be suspicious why they're absent, especially under the COVID circumstances.
That's
So
right.
they're gonna ask, either they're gonna ask their principal or they're gonna ask their coworker. They're gonna ask somebody what happened to that child.
I agree.
So
So what if
So
say
they
that
have to
happens. So
find out.
my classroom, somebody's out, and I heard there's a case of COVID in BMS, and there's a kid out in my class. I'm gonna think it's that one, or if they get a letter. So I get a letter. Somebody in my class has COVID. One of my students was out. Might be them. What do you think I'm going to do with that? Just go run to Facebook and tell everybody as a teacher? I'm going to publicize that a child in my class? You know what? Then I'm a pretty bad teacher if I do that. That's not. You're basically saying that's what a teacher is going to do, and I just don't think that's fair at all.
It's about who has the right to an individual's health information.
That's comes to the.
That's what it comes to. I'm not arguing, that it should be one way or the other. I just want to make sure that we are protected as a school division from possible litigation. And so what I would like to recommend is I would like to actually recommend that Mr. King come to our next meeting.
That would be nice.
And actually you all ask him questions face to face.
I'm good with that.
I think that would be the best way to resolve this, and then he can give you, what we can do. Obviously, we want to do it sounds like I'm hearing you want to do the most you can do to identify the
I think I
source.
agree on that.
Yeah, and let him guide us as to what that should look like. And,
If he can do that without coming, I'm okay with.
well, I don't know that I can articulate what he says with lawyer speak per se. I think you need to be able to interpret what he is saying as opposed
And
to.
that way we can
come
ask
through me.
options like Mr. Chabaka
Yeah.
mentioned that, maybe he prefers classroom only
Yeah.
or prefers school only and not classroom or both. I mean, he may come up with something else that can be done, or at least we'll
Yeah.
say that we can't do any of those, so we will
Right.
know.
If I just call him and bring back information, it's going to prompt more questions to me that then I got to go
Yeah.
back to him again. And I think this is a case where it's
Fair
probably worth him actually being here.
I mean, it'd be nice to see Mr. King. Haven't seen him in a while, but as he knows throughout the years, I don't necessarily take his recommendations either. So
Right. His
I'm where I'm
recommendations
at.
are recommendations. They're, he's an attorney. He's going to give the recommendation, but then you all don't have to take his recommendation. But I mean, if there's consequence for not taking it, then that's on the board.
yeah, I've been around here long enough and worked with Mr. King to know not taking his recommendations of things that this board has done before.
Mhm.
And we're still above water.
Right, it's a recommendation.
There-
It's not telling us what to do.
There is, I've seen this in action. And as Jamie said, people treat it like a play. And as I said, last week, we're going to have folks, and I voted no on whether to have parents fill out the form or do whatever to say, my kid is not sick coming to school. Because folks have to go to work. They don't have childcare. They're going to send the kids to school. So
So you don't think the teacher should know if somebody?
I
had a
think the
question?
teacher should know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Because
think.
Okay, I misunderstood what
the
you were.
teacher is seeing what's going on in that classroom, and there may be interactions that that child is afraid to speak about or forgets to speak about, because I've seen adults do it. And then we've got exposure that should have been contained and it wasn't.
Okay,
And
so
and
we're
I
gonna
guess I
move-
would, I
we're
guess
gonna
I
move
would
this
just
letter.
mention, sure, I would mention to the board, I do think that the teacher will be involved and will have some knowledge because they'll be an important part of contact tracing, particularly
But I
with the
think that
little
needs
ones.
to be definitive, not they probably will be. involved.
Understand.
I think that needs to be a definitive. The other question I would have is, so if a teacher is tested positive, so this is is that the same thing that's going to happen?
Yes, ma'am.
So just the school's going to find out. So if I'm a parent, I'm not going to find out if my child's
The letter will go
teacher-
home, the letter will go home, well.
Right, to
and
the
again,
school
and it-
community. So,
Yes,
I'm in BMS and there's, I don't know how many teachers we have there, 100 or something, I don't know, 60. I don't know.
Yes.
So one of those teachers, and teachers have days out for
Yes.
a variety of reasons, and we don't tell our students why we're out that day. So then so that's going to be, we wouldn't know that either. Okay. Well, I think as a parent, I would also feel there needs to go deeper than just the school. I think parents should know if a teacher has it.
Sure. And let me go ahead and say, we've had another safety and health
Goes both
team
ways.
meeting since the last board meeting. And there was some conversation, some similar conversation around this point with that team as well, which I told our team I would share with you tonight. So again, we just tried to bring forward a letter that represented the conversation as we understood it last time. We certainly can make changes as you see necessary and fit. And at our next meeting, we'll have Mr. King here, I understand, to be able to answer your legal questions much better than I possibly could.
So do we want to hold this letter till next meeting?
Yeah, that'd
Okay.
be fine. Probably have to, we will have another board meeting prior to school.
We will have
Oh,
two.
it will be the first day of school,
Mhm.
I believe. Is that
No,
right?
We will
No,
have
September-
two board
September.
meetings, two board
Sweet.
meetings before
Two
school
before.
starts.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we
let's
have,
get this-
we have plenty of time.
Okay. Yeah, we've got time. So let's get this right
Okay.
and do what you all feels comfortable doing.
Sounds
And maybe, encourage folks to let you know their thoughts on this. This would be a good question for parents and teachers to weigh in on.
Once we know the legalities.
Right.
And I think if there's exposure, whether it's in the school or outside of the school, I mean, we've talked about this before. There's going to be people who have to, self quarantine or there's going to be kids that are going to have to, students that are going to have, and teachers maybe even that are going to have to quarantine at home for 2 weeks at a time. So, I don't know from a HEPA point of view, I don't know that somebody being gone for a couple weeks in this era is necessarily means anything. So, all right.
Sounds
All right.
good. Moving
Take a look.
forward. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Garrison.
Thank you.
Well, that brings us to unfinished business, board members. Any matters of unfinished business?
So it's not, we've been bouncing around some of the stuff tonight, but I was wondering if we could talk about some of the, some of this COVID-19 related back to school stuff, just some open questions and things like that left over from the last meeting. Is that something that
We can. I
that
think
we
it
can
is.
do?
It is
It's
unfinished business.
right? So,
And I don't know if you have any instructional time address or concerns that brought forward with the public this evening, or any other questions that you would like to discuss. It is definitely unfinished business.
So one of the things that came up in the last meeting, and Dr. Meyer was careful to state, but I don't know that I don't know how much it's sunk in with the public, is the fact that, I mean, we are kind of dealing with a moving target here, right? And we do have a plan now for the first time. We voted on a schedule in June. We voted on a plan last time. But that plan can be adjusted. The phase and the levels of that plan can be adjusted, as far as I know, at any time. Now, that's kind of one of my kind of outstanding questions right now. I mean, obviously, if the health department comes to us and says, you need to go all remote, or you need to come down to this phase or something like that, then, I'm assuming an emergency meeting would be called or whatever. But, how often, how are we going to decide when and how to adjust that level as a board? And I'll start with you, Dr. Meyer, on, if you had ideas on that, and especially how it relates. I mean, the big question on everybody's mind right now is that September 8th date. Are we going to show up 50% in person? Is it going to be some other, phase and level? And, where do we, I mean, I have some ideas, but I want to hear what you have to say and what my fellow board members have to say.
Well, one thing that I'll say is this. I was in I'm on the superintendent's state leadership committee, and we met with state superintendent this week. And there are a couple of school divisions who are developing metrics to actually to look at, what will cause us to go from one level to another. And I've asked to be a part of that. And, something, we're talking completely about cases of COVID, and that's what triggers things. I like to say that there will be more things that trigger a change in addition to cases of COVID in schools. There are, capacity issues, technology, remote issues that we might have as we get into this. Teacher issues. If you have a large number of staff who are not coming, then that could trigger what actual phase or stage we're in. There's some school divisions that have an enormous amount of teachers who are asking for ADA accommodations. We had talked about, early on back in February when we were developing our first plans as to when would we close a school down, because we thought we would have to. And some things we talked about is when a certain percent of the students aren't not coming, and teachers as well. So I think we need to sort of develop that piece also and start working on, all of the factors and to give a clear idea, and it can't just be COVID cases in the area. Something that was talked about in terms of different areas. One school division superintendent was talking about in his area, there was a large number of cases in a prison that reflected upon that area. So it wasn't necessarily impacting the school. So you can't just look at the number of cases as reported. You would have to look also at where are those cases occurring, in what communities, and that kind of thing. And so I don't think you can just say we have a lot of cases of COVID that've gone up such and such percent, so we've got to change what we're doing. I think there's a little more to it than that. And so I think that's what we're going to have to work on that and work. I'm going to work with some other school divisions who are developing those metrics to actually figure out how to be able to give good information to you. My goal is to, at any time, give you the best information that I can, and I've explained this to you as an educator. I feel that's my field of expertise. I feel good when I can give you advice in terms of how to educate children in the K-12 environment. I'm not a medical doctor. All right. So I have to rely on others. And that's what I'll do. And certain other data points. If any of you all would like to contribute data points, because some of you have been doing that, feel free to do that. And we need to come up with several different areas to look at as to what will trigger, a change in a phase or a level.
I think that's something we need to do like immediately. I mean, I think at this point,
everything's immediate right now.
I know.
So I understand that. So
right now we're supposed to open to face-to-face instruction in 4 weeks, a little over 4 weeks. Today, 5 weeks, 5 weeks.
Something like that.
Today's August 3rd, 4th. I don't know. I lose track of the days lately.
4.
So
A month.
And when are teachers coming back? 31st. Okay.
Experienced teachers, 24 for new teachers.
Okay. When is our next board meeting?
18.
I think by then we need to have some kind of metrics so that we can make a decision what we're going to do for September 8th. I don't see how we can wait any later than the next board meeting to make a decision if we are going to continue on the face-to-face, or how quickly can we change direction, I guess would be the question. So if right now we're planning on starting face-to-face on the 8th, how quickly can we change direction to go remote? That would be the question.
The various members of our leadership team would have various answers to that. Probably one of the most complex would be special education, elementary education. Secondary, I think it's pretty fluid to move, at the last moment. So would you all like to explain some difficulties and how long it would take to do a transition from one level to another, in your opinion, professional opinion? Dr. Wickham, Dr. Walker, please. Or Dr. Walker's here.
And I'll clarify the face-to-face is 50% face-to-face we are talking about, right? Half of the
Whatever
school.
the plan is.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
Well, I guess for special education, the difficulty would be making the adjustment from face-to-face to whatever phase of remote we're in. Whether it's a full phase, we have certain students with disabilities who are very much impacted, those who cannot access remote. If we're looking at social distancing, trying to, minimize the spread, then we're having limited contact with people. So that way I cannot have their instructional assistance with them at that point in time. So, but students depend on their instructional assistants, those who have them within their IEPs as well. I know I've had several parents who are overwhelmed because they're not skilled in various of our educational programs, our Spire reading programs, of that nature. So that caused some difficulties. Currently, we're writing our IEPs. We're putting language for all 3 phases, just in case we will have to shift. The levels within the phases do help us out quite a bit, because when we were back in March, when the governor first shut us down, because of the seriousness of, the spread. We only had phases 1, 2, and 3. So now we have levels within phases, allowing for students with special needs or other to be able to be educated to come in and to be worked with. So that certainly helps us out. But again, the shifting will cause difficulty for those populations who really either don't have internet, whose disabilities are significant enough where they can not have access, who need the care, the hands-on care of our staff. They won't have that as well. So we have the spring slide. Now we've got the summer slide. Now we've got the fall slide. So it's just, it will just impact on our end, great difficulty for students with disabilities, and also our staffing as well. We'll have to shift to back to remote, which we'll have to, we're planning on increasing our professional development to enhance remote instruction to make it more meaningful, more enhancement for students, more engagement for students. However, but again, working with remote can be difficult. You have only so much you can do and have only so much access. And so also only so much learning and response for students as well. So those are the difficulties that we will have on our end. So again, we amend IEPs every time.
So explain what that means. These IEPs, they're legal documents that are regulated by the federal government. Okay, and some things that we have to do according to federal law. So explain what that
Currently, we're amending IEPs right now. We're contacting parents to set up meetings to amend IEPs based on the current September 8th date. So that's where we are now. So if we, so we're putting language in the IEPs for all 3 phases to get ready for the shift. However, we still have to go into the document to address the service page, to address the service times based on disability deficits that students have. So that has to be adjusted each time. The LRE page, where students are being educated, that page has to be adjusted each time as well. We're putting certain language there too, but you have to address that each time you change a student from a public school to a remote. That's a change in placement. So that page has to be adjusted. We provided our staff with language to help with that. The private notice page has to be addressed every time for a parent because we are making an adjustment to the IEP. So although it will be a little easier for us because we're putting that language in all 3 phases right now, but we still have to adjust and the IEP for each student that we have. And we have roughly 1,050 for students. So again, right now we're addressing that many students right now, but again, we will do whatever we have to do. But again, just that's an overview of the difficulty that we will have shifting back and forth with our department.
Yeah, I think I remember talking about this last week because if we started all remote and then slowly moved face to face, but if we started face to face and then we have to go to remote, you'd have to change them.
Yes, ma'am.
And then if we go back to face, you'd have to change it again.
So if you have the remote option and the face-to-face option already set in the language, and you said you're putting in language to cover multiple phases. At some point, if you have those ready, can you just swap one in for the other?
Well, what we're doing, we're putting the language in the present level or in certain levels, certain pages within the IEP to let the parent know that just in case, mom or dad, we may switch, we may end up going to a different phase.
Yeah.
And we do point them to our plan, so that which has the different phases in. So that really helps the parents out so they can understand, because it's not just 1, 2, or 3, it's different levels. That really helps them out. And so because they know that there's a better chance that students with disabilities can have services. But if we go to strictly remote, that is mentioned as an option, but we still have to address, even though it's mentioned, it's only mentioned. And so we're trying to write our goals to be addressed virtually. So we take that burden off. So it's a lot of burden for the special ed case managers in writing these IEPs and making sure that we're addressing. So we're trying to do a lot of front loading in the IEP right now so that when we have to make a shift, we will just have a minimal addressing of the document, only 3 pages. But again, that's 3 pages for each student on each caseload and
But
in the
if
system.
we as a board do not change, if we change within levels that allow the spec ed students to come 50%, then it shouldn't affect their IEPs. Is that correct?
So here,
Well,
let
that
me answer-
depends.
Let me, okay,
That
hold on.
depends.
Let me ask you this question, Dr. Walker.
Yeah.
All right. So if you look at, we created a plan to maybe help with this. If you go down to phase 2, level 1, it's the same services for SPED students. Does that make sense? So if you pull back to phase 2, level 1, it is, if anybody has that, wants to
I
read
have it
that.
right here. I can read it.
Yeah, go ahead and read that, Ms. Cass.
Phase 2, Level 1, students with disabilities may be offered in-person instruction based on the needs of their IEP. Students who receive ELL services, students without access to the internet through MCPS-provided MiFi devices, students of employees, and 25% of students in grades PK to 3 will attend 2 half-days per week. All other students will participate in remote instruction. MCPS will operate childcare services as provided in the plan.
So that is
That's
the,
the key of
that would be, you could pull it back to that point without changing IEPs. And what that does is everyone else is remote except 25% of the little ones would come in, which I'm much in favor of the little ones coming in. I mean, that would be probably, those classes have 16 in them anyway. So you look at 4 kids at a time. So to pull back to phase 2, level 1 is not difficult to do from a SPED point of view. Am I correct?
Yes, that's one of the options. But also we have to take into account each meeting is, again, the parent comes to the table and the parent can change their mind based upon the situation at hand. If they feel that, well, I don't want my child to come at all because there's too many, the numbers have spiked too much, then that changes things. So we can make a recommendation, the parents can make a recommendation, and we try to work that out. But we do want to adhere to what the parent's perspective. So we have that option, but the levels do certainly help us out when it gives us more flexibility without going back to full, a full level 1
So if
where
we
there's
start-
strictly minutes.
I'm sorry, Tony.
Yes.
So if we start, this is what we were talking about the last meeting.
It was.
So if we started at a phase 2, level 1, your special ed students would be starting in class, in face-to-face in September, as well as PK to 3 for 25% of the time.
Correct. And some
And that's what
ELL
you're-
students, and we of course, don't have a large population of ELL.
And students without internet.
And then that's fewer than 100 that we can't. So divided out
Students
over
of
20 schools.
employees and, right.
Yeah. I mean, a teacher would be looking, it would vary from class to class, but in that scenario, probably fewer than 5 kids in a class.
Yeah.
Maybe none, depending on the class.
Yes. And that would change also too. Again, we would have the difficulty determining which students come.
Right.
And so
You'd still
that's
have
again more work at the IP table with the parents. So again, that would cause some difficulty, but at least some students with disabilities get to attend.
Mhm.
Yes.
And there wouldn't be this, and then you,
The higher the percentage, the better for us.
100% of everybody coming back, you mean?
No. If you're looking at a level 2,
Mhm.
which is a 25%,
Mhm.
but 50% bringing special ed students in would help us a great deal. More students get to come, the higher the percentage.
Okay.
What? Okay.
All right. So, all right.
But I thought it was
Let me
100%.
I can take a step back further.
It is.
It's phase 1, level 3.
Oh,
we did so many increments here.
That's the one that doesn't have childcare available then.
Correct. That's where you get into an issue.
That's where
with
we were
teacher.
talking back and forth last time about.
It'd be difficult for teachers.
Doesn't run childcare at all, does it?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Phase one,
if you're in
anything in phase
any
one.
phase one, there's no childcare offered in the school division.
But I
Not
thought
doing a
phase two,
childcare
level
service.
one allowed students with disabilities to come in for the whole time.
I think, yeah, that's what
I think it
my
does.
understanding
It
was.
allows 100% for them.
Yeah, if their IEP needs
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
they're 100%.
Because starting actually phase one,
It's
level
only the
three.
PK to 3 is 25%. Only PK to 3 would be 25%.
Say that again.
I'm sorry. Only PK to 3 would be 25%.
Yeah.
Correct. In phase two, level
Right,
one.
but students with disabilities would be able
Yeah.
to
They
come
would
back.
be able to come.
And internet
Phase one,
and
level
those
three.
others. that
And
are
internet.
listed.
Yeah.
Those are all.
And childcare, that's a huge one. Once you go into phase one, phase one is meant, in our opinion, to be a very dire situation. Almost back down into a stay-at-home order lockdown kind of thing for the community.
And the only difference with that and shutdown is letting the spec ed kids to come, ELL kids to come, and kids without computer access to
Yeah.
come. That's the only difference between level, phase one levels. And I mean, phase one, level one is complete shutdown, and anything after gives the spec ed and ELL and student without computer access coming to school 100%. Am I right? Yeah.
Which level and phase?
Starting from probably phase one, level two, and on.
All right, we need to get them in front of us.
No.
Well,
And then there's,
See,
here,
that's
I will
that.
say this,
We can't do
level
level two.
level on phase one,
go to left.
any level
We're done.
means we do not offer
It needs to be
childcare
3 at least.
That's true. Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah, that's true.
That is
yes.
that's in a very difficult situation for this community, I would think.
Yeah.
In terms of,
We're back to like March.
we're back to
Yeah.
like March again.
Yeah.
You are
yeah.
back to March.
I mean, I think there's, we're in a dire situation. We're in a dire situation, I think, as a country. But anyway, we're trying to manage it, I think, is what we're trying to do. And I think we're trying to do that as a community. I said this last time, there is a lack of federal leadership on this. And more of these decisions keep getting pushed down, and now they're pushed down to us. And that's fine. I'm happy to make those decisions.
Thank you so much.
Want to try to get as much information as we can. I was asking the question about, how we do that and when we do that. I think one of the things that came out of the last meeting, we pushed the date to September 8th. I think that was partially because there was concerns about the college students coming back. I think Dr. Bissell said that that it would take about 2 to 4 weeks, I think, to see the effects of that. And I think, I remember thinking at the time that September 8th was right on the edge there for that. So, I don't know. I mean, we are 5 weeks off, and I don't, we have to be prepared to shut down I don't know if the governor is going to come out and shut us down in one day, but that's what happened in the spring. And I'm assuming that we need to be prepared to shut down pretty quickly if we have to. But as far as our board is concerned, there's other levels that we can choose depending on, I keep saying the condition on the ground. And I don't know that the condition on the ground has improved since our last meeting. I think we've had some days with some pretty high case counts. So I agree with Dr. Meyer. I think we have to start thinking about what those metrics are going to be for us. I think it's important to talk about the difference between, we heard testimony from Dr. Bissell, and I took some extensive notes during her testimony. And one of the things when I went back and reviewed it is, coming at this from a public health point of view where, I think her main concern seemed to be from what she said, seemed to be focused on having our healthcare system be able to react, having enough hospital beds and things like that. But in the end, the testimony was, if you open schools, kids will get it. And I don't remember the exact quote, but there was talk about people dying. And I think there were 4 members of this board that did not necessarily see eye to eye that was an acceptable risk or metric at this time. The metric of we have enough hospital beds, we have a healthcare system that can absorb that. So I'm not saying that we necessarily need to make a decision tonight on something, but I am posing the question for the board to think about when we want to, what metrics do we want to use, and what decision do we want to make, or when do we want to make it, how much time do we want to give the staff on something like that? Because I think
That's what I basically brought up earlier.
Yeah.
That's the question.
Hopefully for
How much-
next meeting, we may have some estimates.
the next meeting will be 1 week out from school starting, so I think.
Yeah, we're not going to know anything by then.
What's that?
Wait, 1 week out from school starting? 2 weeks?
I'm
We have
sorry,
a meeting-
that's 2 meetings from now. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
We still have 2 board meetings.
So the next meeting will be 3 weeks out from school starting. Is that enough time for you, Dr. Walker, to switch gears, and for you, Mr. Wickham, to switch gears, and for everybody else to switch gears to be able to go remote if they have to?
I think so, as long as we don't go below phase 2, level 1.
Why phase
Maybe-
2, level 1? Why not phase 1, level 3? I don't
It could be
understand
level
that.
Because
3.
you get childcare then, and the
You have a
childcare is
child
pretty
care issue in
critical.
this community that will be hard to fix,
It'll be a lot
including
easier.
our own teachers not being able to show up.
Yeah.
It will prompt our many teachers that will not be able to show up due to child care issues.
I think that you guys need to develop the metrics and come back with us next time. And then we can make some of these, we can talk
Sure.
more about this.
Let me say this though, we will work on that. I don't know if it'll be enough for you, or you'll like what we give you. We'll do the best we can. A lot of those metrics are based would probably entail what happens when we're in school and already started.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? A lot of what happens once we move back.
Sure.
Because at this point, we do not have students who are sick. We do not have teachers who are sick.
Mhm.
And so that would definitely, make a huge difference. But
Do we
will-
know that? Are we sure we don't have any?
Yes. No, we're talking actually creating our own metric system.
Okay.
Yeah. Any ideas on what metrics you think are important to, and you don't have to tell me now, you could brainstorm and send it to Jason.
I mean, I think I've heard percentage of tests coming back positive. I've heard is a metric that has been used by other school systems, and it is a metric that supposedly measures the extent of the virus in your community. I think, yeah, sorry.
I think that's where we have to rely on the COVID task force and Dr. Bissell they know where the contact tracing is happening. They know where the outbreaks are. They know how well they've been contained. And we really have to rely on them.
But they don't share any information. That's the problem. They won't tell you where there are any outbreaks or where any there. So that it doesn't really help if they won't provide any information.
They're going to protect
That's true.
us.
Actually, today on the state superintendent conference that we all attended today, that is a big rub between the DOE and the health department.
Mm-hmm.
The Department of Education is asking that it be released to them and to us so we can have access to it. And the health department does not want to release that data to us.
Well, I
So
mean,
that's,
part of it is they still don't know certain things also. I mean, the whole science, they don't know role of children in transmission. They don't know role of opening schools in the spread of community. That's why actually Dr. Fauci called us as an experiment, because they want schools to open so they will have that data. I mean, that unfortunately boils down to that. So certain information they really truly don't know. I mean, it's just trial and error.
I think to some degree too, there's, and I'm not trying to, I think we're all trying to work together, but there's been some differences of opinion that have been expressed. And I think that we have 4 board members who have clearly indicated that they are uncomfortable and that would like to err to the side of caution. And so I'm bringing this up for a couple of reasons, but one of them is I want the public to be informed about what could possibly happen in the next month. And even if we start as planned at 50%, conditions on the ground could change within a week or two. We don't know. I mean, I think that this is a fluid situation, and it's probably a good time to once again thank all of you guys for what you're doing. And because you're not just planning one thing, you're planning this thing that has so many different permutations of things that can happen. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I was just looking, so the students move in on Wednesday, August 17th. So it's the day after our next meeting. Is that correct? Yeah.
Not all of them.
Well, first year, those living on campus,
Some of them already back.
Some of them are already
Apartments.
back, but I think you're gonna see a big influx of people right around that time.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I have said that my goal is to get our kids back in the buildings as soon as possible, as long as possible. I want consistency. I would much rather see us start remotely, ramp up to 25%, get to 50% by second quarter, and stay there, than to start at 50% September 8th, and then 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later have to shut down for 3 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it's going to be. And then, I think that's going to cause more disruption. And so I'm trying to encourage this is where we are, I think, and to think about, how we're going to proceed on some of this stuff and in a way that will be the least.
What do we do if
fraction.
teachers? What do we do if teachers don't show up? Do we have a pool of substitutes to put in there?
Have we had
Well-
teachers say they're not coming back?
Well, no, not directly.
No. Well, the
Not
thing
yet.
is,
Okay.
they're not going to. A lot of them are terrified, and I am not making that word up. That is the word that is used in several communications that I've received. Terrified. I got so many texts today from teachers that are because as the day gets closer, they become more concerned, and the fear gets stronger. And so right now, I mean, I've got people saying I'm going to retire. I have people saying I'm going to look for another job, and so that's now. What's going to happen 3 weeks from now when they have to return to work and students show up and suddenly half of your teaching population doesn't show up for work?
Right now, we have 2 retirements based on it, with folks that are eligible to retire. I'll say this, that will be a part, just like our flu plan that we have, that will be a part of
metrics.
of the metrics.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be a situation too, is it a school by school thing or is it an entire division thing? I mean, we don't necessarily have to do the same at every school across the school division. There's an outbreak at one school. Do you close an entire school division? That's a question too that you might have to answer later on.
Yeah.
And so, but with we will put in there, at what point can we not operate on a face-to-face basis? How many we would have to analyze our substitutes and then take that and see how many we would have to actually be in the building, and then how many teachers would not have to show up for us to have to take that school to a fully remote learning environment.
Or what kind of accommodations can you make for teachers who are afraid to go into the classroom? Because if you have to make a choice because teachers don't show up and now you have to go fully remote, wouldn't it be easier to just allow teachers who are really concerned about their health, not their health concerns aren't enough to get.
Okay, now you have to remember too, that in our plan, teachers come to work unless it's phase
But it's a
one
big
level.
difference being in your classroom and there's no students sitting in front of you versus coming in your classroom and there's a bunch of people with masks on in front of you.
There's some
That's,
clarity that needs to be made there. Teachers will come to work.
but if I'm a teacher and I'm afraid and I'm fearful of having students in my classroom, but I can go to my classroom every day and I can teach remotely to my students until we feel like, things are safe, then, and I feel strongly that I can do a good job teaching them remotely, is that, are we even considering that? Are we giving that opportunity to people?
Mr. Knight, you want to let folks know what our criteria is for accommodations, which is pretty consistent with the Department of Labor's?
Well, but see, that's ADA. But at Virginia Tech, there are people who,
Mr. Walker.
if they are concerned about going back to work, supervisors can make an accommodation outside just of the typical labor accommodations. If that's, you want to telework because you feel more comfortable teleworking because you're concerned you have an elderly parent at home. So that's the thing. A lot of teachers, and they have children, they have elderly parents they're taking care of. There's concerns, and so you're putting
some of those that you just mentioned actually are reasons to be able to stay at home. But I don't think that all jobs are different.
Right.
And that's just.
Well, I'm familiar with the labor laws. I work in HR too.
Okay, well,
but
how about Mr. Knott get everyone familiar with what we do?
Okay.
And how we follow those labor laws.
So we're following all the FMLA and FERCA rules, policies, laws that are out there right now. We are finding it with teachers having to supervise students very difficult to make work from home accommodations. We are working with individual teachers with their situations to try to make as many accommodations as we can. But the bottom line is our business is students, and we have to have teachers in the building to work with those students. And if we've got a few teachers in the elementary, a few positions, in the elementary world at each grade level, one person at each school per grade level that does teach remotely. But many of them also have students that come to their class every day. So they're doing the remote and the in-person face-to-face teaching. So we don't have teaching positions that really allow us to just say, yes, you can work from home. Where we can make accommodations, we are.
All right, so that leads to my next question that might be related. And if it's getting us off track, let me know and I'll come back to it later. But I was going to ask about this whole full-time versus part-time thing. As far as student, when I say full-time, meaning, like right now I have, my kids are set up to go back to the building because they don't want to be remote for the entire year. But, my 11-year-old is not comfortable going back into the building as of now on September 8th. So she's not going to show up for several weeks at least, maybe half a quarter, maybe a whole quarter. What's the granularity of that? Because if we can work with, because I think this is going to be like, I appreciate that we're being flexible, but I wonder if we need to put in like a 1 week granularity at least where possible, or something, or 2 week or half a quarter or something. Because then if you had that granularity, could you do something like that where, okay, I'm a teacher, I know that all my students are remote today, that kind of a thing, right?
If all of your students were remote in one day, we would still want the teacher to come to school, be in their classroom. They just wouldn't have students in front of them, but they would be teaching
Why is
remote.
that? Like, let's say, for example, that a teacher has to self-quarantine at home.
Then the teacher would be allowed to actually stay at home and instruct.
And instruct remotely with a substitute in the classroom.
So, okay, so why in one case and not the other?
Because now they're not there because of medical reasons where they have to quarantine, and we're going to have some kind of documentation with that. We're going to ask for documentation from a doctor or something that requires that.
So many of us in the private sector have, of course, I've been doing it for over a decade. I've been working from home, and when I first did it, it was, the only people that ever worked at home was, when you occasionally waited for the cable guy and, I don't know, didn't do any work, right? So the whole idea of work from home was comical to people, right? But I think that's another positive thing that's coming out of this. I think we're quickly becoming a society where people do work from home. And, if we can and some people are better at it than others. Some people ramp up to it quickly. And I understand that there would be reasons why we would want people to come in anyway. But I do think at some point, I hope if we get to that point soon, it would be good to, on a principal basis or whatever, allow people to have some of that flexibility if they really don't have to. So
The biggest issue is the students. If they've got 6 students, one of them is coming to school.
No, absolutely. No argument there.
That's the issue.
No argument there. No argument there. So can I ask about that? So can we talk about that granularity question? Because that's something that people have been asking me. And honestly, as a parent, it's a question I have. I mean, I know I could send my kids back remote 100%. And maybe I want to send them back remote this quarter. But maybe next quarter, I want to see where things are. And I want to have the option of basically, bringing them in. And I'm probably not the only parent thinking that. I don't know what y'all's experience is on this.
So are you asking about their ability to move in between the two?
Well, what we're doing, what I'm understanding that we're doing is we're asking, like we asked parents at the beginning of this over the summer, we surveyed parents first, then the assistant principals called and asked, is this really what you want, kind of a thing. And the granularity of that is the entire year. Are you going to go remote the whole year? Or do you basically want to come in? And by coming in, it really means you can come in or be remote.
Right.
Nobody's holding you.
And let me
to
say, and Barbara could also answer that, 'cause it's a huge elementary question as well.
Yeah.
And we're going to be as flexible as possible. We did ask that question and we did get folks' wishes. However, how many do we have changed in the past few weeks?
Approximately 550
We had 550
Okay.
changed their choice.
Yeah.
But not,
and part
but
of that
that's
is because
between morning and afternoon and all types of different
It's all
changes,
kinds.
right?
it's all, yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But
A lot of it was from face-to-face to remote or remote to face-to-face.
Right.
Sometimes
People are
it's-
going, it's back and forth and there's a lot of changes.
Well,
We're
and
gonna
there's
ask-
a lot that we don't know as parents, right? I don't know. What does it really look like for me to send my daughter to school for an entire quarter remote when she's part of a class that's not remote? Am I better off just signing her up for the remote? Can I get halfway through the year and say, hey, the cases are way down, everything's fine, there's been no outbreaks, we feel a lot more comfortable. Now I want to send her in, right? And I don't think parents know that. And I think that's why you're getting a lot of these.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to keep getting it. So I think this is something that I think we need to figure out and communicate.
We have communicated.
Well,
And we've communicated and we've communicated, but it's a.
I'm on the
really
school board and I'm kind of
I know.
confused
Well,
about it,
and-
right?
and-
So
right. It's tough. It's complicated.
it is tough.
But what
yeah.
we can simply communicate is this: we're going to be flexible in how parents want to educate their children in terms of in and out as many times as they want. I mean, complete flexibility. That's the answer.
So with that answer, let me ask, here's my follow-up then, maybe to get a little more specific. Are we better off for the kids and for the staff? Are we better off having some kind of granularity on this, for would you like to be remote this quarter or would you like to be remote for the next 2 weeks or whatever?
Well, one thing
so that
we
you
are-
can,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So you can shuffle the kids into, all the remote kids can be in a remote only class and that kind of a thing.
And that's happening some. I met with a teacher yesterday. She has a class in front of her in the morning and then a remote class in the afternoon.
But how many of those kids that are supposed to be in front of her are going to actually be there? Because right now, nobody in the school system knows that my daughter, at least one of my daughters, is not going to show up the first day of school and probably not going to show up for the first several weeks. Right? So does that create problems? I mean, the teacher could literally show up and just have one student there.
That's possible. There's so many unknowns especially when we give so many choices. But I'm okay with us dealing with those unknowns and working with families to help do the best that we can for their individual situation. It will be difficult at times, to make that movement. But I guess the answer at the end is we're going to do what's best for individual families in the best way we can. I don't want to lock a family into a situation, say, once you choose this, you can't go to another. I don't think that's good for students either. And so we're allowing. Now, we do have those who have said it's virtual the entire year.
Sure, yeah.
That virtual the entire year, that's the expectation for that group. It's been very clear to them. Mr. Husband has been very clear to them. All right, you choose this, then you're in for the long haul. All right.
Yeah.
But those that are the in-out remote kids, we're going to be flexible.
Okay.
And we're trying, and some things we're doing to create flexibility that will be conducive to the child's education is, for one, the teachers. Trying to keep them with the same teachers, especially with temporary changes. Okay. Barbara, do you want to speak to any of that elementary?
Yes, I think we talked about this just a little bit last time, but at each grade level, we have a remote teacher assigned for those students who are going remote or virtual at the elementary level. We're trying to keep our class sizes as the same PTR as any other teacher, so that at any time, if a child in that remote class wanted to come back to school, they could, and they would already have that relationship with that teacher who's been teaching them. Additionally, if a child starts out face-to-face, and they need to go remote for a short period of time, whatever that may be, then they would temporarily be placed in that remote teacher's classroom, because that's the teacher who then is prepared to deliver instruction remotely. But then when they're able and ready to come back to school, they would go back into their regular teacher's classroom where they've started building those relationships. And this really is huge at the elementary level. Again, we talked about this last time. We surveyed our teachers. And when you think about the little children, last time, K through 2, we sent packets. And teachers said, they recognized that was the best that we could do at the time, but you're not able to deliver new instruction really through packets. Our challenge really is that as wonderful as our teachers are, as hardworking as they are, kindergarten and first grade teachers in particular, and for the most part, second grade teachers, are not prepared at this moment to deliver instruction remotely. Because if you think about a 5-year-old, for example, when our kindergartners come in, typically our kindergarten teachers would not deliver instruction through Google Classroom. Children, many of them can't read yet. So we really need to have the opportunity for our teachers, for them to be able to be trained, to get their children prepared. And additionally, to prepare our parents, because what we know is that for our little children, they cannot do remote instruction by themselves. They have to have an adult with them. You all know 5-year-old and 6-year-olds. Imagine them trying to be on a computer by themselves without an adult there to keep them focused with what that teacher is saying. So really, truly, our teachers do need some time for those littles to become prepared with Google Classroom and our Google platform.
And I wasn't asleep on the other end of the speaker last time. It was actually because of that.
I think you may have asked me the question.
Yeah, and I think that was the first time that I realized that you're actually, you're kind of breaking up the classes and trying to group those kids that are going to be remote only. And so I think that's what got me thinking about that, because I think delivering remote only instruction is probably better for both the staff and the students. And so if a parent knew, yeah, I'm doing this for the whole quarter, I'm doing it for half a year, if there's enough parents that are doing that, then you could have a whole nother remote, classroom. I'm just wondering if we need to, well, I don't want to create extra work for the APs and stuff, but I just wondering if there's a way to improve on that model and make y'all's lives easier while delivering better instruction to the kids.
With our virtual committee, our teachers that were serving on that committee, that was one of the things that they asked, of course, was as much as possible, could we put the remote students in the same class? So the principals have been working to do that. So let's say 10 of my students are remote, 10 are face-to-face, then they put all 10 of them either in the AM or PM block to assist with that.
No, okay, yeah, I realize that, but I think what I'm telling you is I think we're going to see that there's going to be a lot of parents who picked the face-to-face option because they want the option to come back later in the school year, and those teachers may not see those students for the first quarter or half a year, or I don't know. It probably depends on how things go, right? So something to think about. But anyway, we don't need to spend too much more time on it. But thank you.
Anybody else wants to make any points? We're still under unfinished business, but before I move to new business.
Well, I'll just say, my fears about starting face-to-face are still there.
Hmm.
But this is where we're at, and we can't keep flip-flopping around. A lot of the information we just heard, we heard last week, allowing families to be able to work through their issues or whatever happens in or out of the buildings. So we're going to be going for it. And what happens will happen. And we're going to, as Dr. Myers said, we're going to be flexible and work with that. If the governor comes on and says, we're shutting it down again, then we shut it down again and we go back into remote mode. If, as Dr. Bissell said last week, you know, at a certain point, she's going to say, I recommend that you shut it down. And we were actually saying we needed something in place where the superintendent did not have to call each board member
Right.
to
You're correct.
say, are you okay with me shutting it down?
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So we still need to have that.
Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
I know folks are afraid. I'm afraid. I'm holding my breath, waiting to see what happens. And it will be every day until the end of school in 21 that I'll be holding my breath, or there's some vaccine that helps get this under control. That's the world we're living in right now. And as September the 8th gets closer and closer, I'm listening more, I'm watching more, just to see where we might be. And if something has to change, it's going to change.
Mm.
That's where we're at. That's the world we're living in. So
Yeah.
I'm sucking it up and saying, here we go.
Oh,
Here we go.
I just can't suck it up. And
Well,
I
I'm
just,
sorry that you can't just suck it up.
well, I don't,
At some point in my life, I have to start making decisions about different things that I do and whether I'm afraid of it or whether I have reservations about it. I still have to start moving forward. I can't just sit still.
and
So
I agree with pulling up my big girl
I-
panties and moving on. I get that whole idea.
So that's where I'm.
But
at
I
with
think
it.
I
That's where I'm at
am
with it.
uncomfortable
Not
with making a
everybody else is
decision.
comfortable with that, and not everybody else is comfortable with everything that we do in our lives. But we move on. We have to move on.
Well, when I'm making a decision that affects other people's lives and deaths possibly, that's a little bit more than pulling up my big girl panties. Sorry.
Well, first of all, it ain't big girl panties. This is just being brave and saying we got to move on. We have to keep moving. And how this is going to play out, everybody's going to have to make decisions for themselves, and then we'll have to adjust as a school system to folks' decisions to keep moving forward. It's every day. Every day we're going to be waiting and watching and to hear what's going on. Plain and simple. But at some point, we can't keep flip-flopping around. We got to just do it. And I am not comfortable with it, but this is where we're at. It's a different world.
So, Ms. Franklin, if I understand, and forgive me for, I'd really like to understand your position on this, and I agree, and that's why I'm not advocating that we change anything tonight, certainly not officially, but what I said earlier sounds like similar to what you were saying, that, you know, we'll keep an eye on the situation, and if things change, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, right? I mean, if we have an outbreak, if things change on the ground, are you prepared to make to exercise that power to change things?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
All right.
I mean, what else
We
do
still
we
don't
do?
know.
No, I mean, I think that's what we've been saying, so I
Yeah,
think we're
I
in
think we're
agreement. That's
saying the
good.
same thing, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
All right, new business. Any new business board members?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ken. There was one other thing I wanted to bring up under, so I was going to ask on, so I think we have a start date of September 8th. You know, right now the plan is that we will start 50% face-to-face, which means there's going to be a lot of remote learning going on anyway. What about, so one of the things I've been kicking around lately is, you know, how do we ramp up to this if we're not starting instruction remotely? And one idea I had was that I think the week of August, I'm using Monday dates here, the week of August 24th, which is 2 weeks before our start time, that and I don't, maybe the staff has already been talking about this, but the idea of doing a, like remote back to school nights, possibly, teachers can do those, one student at a time or something like that.
Okay.
And then the week after that, maybe even hold some, Zoom classes or whatever technology they're going to use in their classroom of these classes to get basically not with any instruction, but just to get people, just to get kids and teachers and everybody practicing using the technology, dry run, these things can be optional. And the fact that we passed the 990 hours and hopefully that means Tommy will get his hard date of, late May, can we have teachers come back a couple weeks early?
No,
To
we're
do
not
that?
planning on doing that.
Okay.
I don't think. But there's some
All
things
right, go
being
ahead.
planned by our schools that anything that's planned by our schools, we make them run it past Jason.
Okay.
To make sure
Mhm.
everything is in line with the regulations in terms of health. But some things are being talked about.
Yes, sir. Schools are making plans for back to school nights under the conditions we're in right now. And there is a lot of talk and a lot of planning around virtual back to school nights, back to school meetings with teachers. But we are also still trying to think about those families that are new, kindergartners, for example, or students that are changing grade levels to put them in a new school building, rising freshmen, for example. So we are making arrangements with each individual school to plan as many of those activities as we can in a virtual setting. And then when those that we do need to do face-to-face in person, they do have mitigation plans to kind of support, size restrictions as far as numbers, masking requirements. We've tried to align everything based upon what the board approved in their plan 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So those are actively happening at the elementary and the secondary level.
Yeah, we have a principals meeting tomorrow, and we're going to dive into that a little bit and see who's doing what, and let them do some sharing about what their ideas from school to school. So but that's definitely important. There needs to be some interaction before they see their student the first day on Google Meet or Zoom, whichever they're using.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Moving on to new business. Anything new that you would like to introduce? If not, I'm going to announcements and information.
So I'd like to announce that on August the 22nd, the Dialogue on Race will be doing our summer summit. It will be different than it has been. No good food, no nice outside socializing. So it will be a Zoom, and the topic will be racial trauma. This is something folks really don't understand.
What do you want to talk about?
Racial trauma
Mhm.
will be the topic. So we have some experts who will be talking about this. It'll be a 60 minutes or so explanation as to what racial trauma is and the effects, and then about 25 minutes or so of questions and answers through Zoom. So we're excited about it and hope that you all will register and attend.
Thank you for that information.
It's at 4.
What kind of Mr. Chicken
It's 4:00.
and your
Right.
cake.
It's on the 22nd, Saturday, the 22nd, 4:00. It's already on my calendar.
Yeah, 22nd, 4:00. All right, the next one is upcoming school board meetings. You see that on the 8th and September 1st. And then if nothing else, we're ready to get into closed session. Our next order of business is closed session. May I have a motion to go into closed session to discuss 5 student matters and 2 personnel matters as
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I forgot the long.
as authorized by Section 2.2-3711 of Code of Virginia.
So moved.
You are ready to move.
Second.
I have motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Now we're in closed session.
I'm very sorry.
That's all right. Sure.